necessarily those of this station or its management. This radio show contains differing points of view on current political topics, and due to the nature of its contents, it should be heard by everyone. Thank you for listening. 3, 2, 1. Now live from the Devil Radio Studios in Madison, Wisconsin, where the political party is just beginning. Welcome to the Devil's Advocate Show. Friends proving it's never personal, only politics. Please allow me to introduce myself. Here is your host, Mike Crute.
Welcome to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. Another week. And abortion is illegal in the great state of Wisconsin. Happy Monday to you, Fancy Brian. Welcome back. Big galoot.
Well, it sure is Monday.
I can't hear you, fella. Someone turn on the microphones.
It sure is. It sure is Monday, isn't it?
Oh, it feels like a Monday.
Oh, it does.
You got a haircut, fella. Looking handsome.
I have lost weight, and I got a haircut, which makes me look like I lost weight.
Oh, well, you're looking svelte. Svelte. I have lost weight. Literally, just a couple pounds. Not a lot, but enough to encourage a chubby guy like me. So I'm in the right direction.
Good for you. Good stuff.
You know, I was holed up in a hotel room the last number of days. As you well know, a double convention week for yours truly. The Wisconsin Broadcasters Convention, first one I've ever been to. Maybe the last. Not my favorite convention ever. I'm not a big conventioneer sort of guy. But, you know, made a couple of friends and saw some old friends and literally saw some old friends from like college days that are still working at the ABC affiliate in La Crosse that I used to work at. And the fact that they remember me is shocking that I left any sort of impression.
Well, that's pretty cool, though. I mean, those jobs don't turn over very much. That's why it's hard to get into the business a lot.
I bumped into a lot of people I worked with in La Crosse. I never would have guessed. And perhaps it's because the convention was in La Crosse. You know, the hometown TV station said, okay, everybody go. But, you know, a bunch of them, man. It's like, wow, I knew people. So still won't convince me to go back to a second convention. But maybe if they go back to La Crosse, it's beautiful there. It's God's country. And the second convention I attended was the Democratic Party convention. The DPW convention, Democratic Party of Wisconsin. So we will do some recapping on that. But first, right off the top, I'm going to need you to take a couple of show notes here. Super urgent J6 hearing's been inserted into the live lineup tomorrow, Fancy Brian. I understand there's new evidence they're going to present.
Certain things have come to light, and we will be ready, and we will be live and broadcasting whenever that is on.
You know what that's got to be? I mean, the only reason to drop it like it's hot, is because you got new tapes. And the new tapes, I think, are probably from the documentarian. And that documentarian wants to drop his, documentary. So, you know, they want to use the evidence, the interviews, the raw footage, and then, you know, let the guy make a buck on his efforts. But Fancy Brian, it's dropping tomorrow, high noon. We're going to play it live right here on Devil Radio in the Shaw. So, you know, democracy, it sneaks up on you sometimes with the J6 hearing. And I'm looking forward to that. Also looking forward to an appearance from Wisconsin's current Attorney General, Josh Kaul, joining us at 4:30 today. Josh Kaul's been too long, didn't sneak him in at the convention, so we're going to sneak him in today. Obviously, in part, he will have to comment on the overturning of Roe v. Wade. And we have gone back effectively 100 plus years here in the state of Wisconsin. The law, the governing law in the book, well, maybe not 100 plus, 150 plus, something like that. We're back being governed by an 1849 law. I'm not great at doing math on the radio, but I think it's 2022. That's a long time ago. I'm not going to count the years, but that's a lot of years. And there's not a lot they can do about it. Talking about on a state level. So anyways, we're going to get the reactions, and we're going to have a couple of hot takes from the state convention. And I'm going to tell you, man, I think there were definitely some winners and, you're listening to one of the winners. You were all winners for tuning in to the live convention coverage. Appreciate our fine sponsor, Chad's Design Build locally, for sponsoring the big convention coverage. And we were happy to provide it. That's not my first dim party convention rodeo. I've been to a lot of those suckers. I think like at least 8 concurrent conventions. Now they skipped with the pandemic, but wasn't like we weren't willing to participate. So anyways, went and partied my ass off in La Crosse with all the good dims. And it was an engaged convention. I mean, in light of the fact that Roe v. Wade overturned on Friday going into convention weekend, I think the Dems noticed. I think they noticed. I hope the broader electorate noticed. But let me tell you a couple of early hot takes, a couple of Crudy's first thoughts. Mandela Barnes won the straw poll. And if they were all competing for something, Fancy Brian, it was to win that straw poll. And Mandela won. And it was a narrow victory, but, in the box score, he won by 2. He beat Godlewski by only 2 votes in the straw poll. But the headline says Mandela Barnes won the straw poll, right?
That's a huge gap she overcame to do that.
Well, the second place, I think, is a strong showing for Godlewski's campaign. In a distant third was the campaign of Lasry. And he was not apparently as inspiring in the room. I would say probably most of the people that stuck around for the speeches on Sunday, and I did my job. I got up and checked out of my hotel room and went over and plopped down in the back of the room. I like the back of the bus, back of the class, back of the convention hall. And I watched the fine speeches, and some of them were fine speeches. And some were less fine. And one was downright crazy. Just backguano. But anyways, Mandela Barnes won the straw poll, and that's the most important part. That's the only takeaway. For most of the people that did not attend, they're just going to hear Mandela won. And, good for him. He's the front runner. Until somebody beats Mandela, he is your presumptive nominee. And I know they're all trying, but right now, Mandela, he's in first place. You got to knock off the king. And Godlewski came close. She gave a good speech. She was wearing a hot pink, in deference to Roe, I suspect. She is the only female candidate in the field, in the U.S. senatorial field, from Wisconsin. I believe Politico had an article already today about, will Roe v. Wade shake up this race? And they did talk about the Wisconsin race. Now, Ron Johnson, the incumbent senator, well, he celebrated Roe. Celebrated the overturning of Roe, that is. And the Democrats, they were, let's just say, quite critical of Ron for that and many, many reasons. But Mandela sounded good. Godlewski sounded good. But Tom Nelson probably won the speeches. If anybody presented the best, it was Tom. I thought he was clever. I thought he was funny. I thought he had the best speech, for what it's worth. Now, the straw poll was probably already cast. By the time the speeches were actually given, that was more of a beauty contest. You know what they do, Fancy Brian? Well, it was late night with Lasry. They had the hospitality tent, and they plied you with the booze or the pizza or whatever it is they had, because I didn't actually go in the late night with Lasry party tent, or suite, hospitality suite, if you would. And the Godlewski team, they had Bloody Marys in the morning. And I'm thinking, man, I could use one of those, but I got a long drive back from La Crosse. I'm not going to start boozing right in the morning.
She knows her audience, though.
I thought it was a thoughtful, eye-opener, because many of the conventionaires were out like we were until the wee hours. So the Sunday morning, she had the Bloody Marys, and Tom Nelson had a beer analogy. And, he told the story, and he was telling the story of him as a beer, and he represented himself with a spotted cow. And then he described the other candidates in the race, and the U.S. senatorial race is, more of your corporatist Bud Light kind of beers. And I'm not a big fan of the Bud Light, so I thought, if I was going to pick, like a off national brand beer, you don't want to do Miller Lite because that's based in Wisconsin. And I think the implication, sort of a backhanded Lazary, you move into our state and you think you're a hometowner, but you're not. Now, many could probably claim the hometown mantle. I mean, Mandela's a lifelong Wisconsinite. Godlewski grew up in Green Bay. Tom obviously claims his own Wisconsin roots. But it was his speech and his presentation. And Fancy Brian, he did a hell of a job. I thought he had the best speech, Nelson. And after Nelson was done, I promptly walked out of the arena because I had seen enough. I had either spoken to or seen all the speeches. I saw the 4 major candidates, plus the crazy. And as I came walking out the back, I snuck out the back because I'm sitting in the back, as is Crudy's habit. And who should come walking down the hallway but the fresh from the stage Tom Nelson. And once upon a time, I saw a candidate coming right off the stage. And as fate would have it, I also crossed paths with that candidate. And that candidate was gubernatorial nominee Mary Burke back in, I believe it was 2014, our first official convention. And Mary saw me, and she'd appeared on the show a few times. I liked Mary Burke. I think the best speech she ever gave was in concession. But Mary Burke said, well, hey, Crudy, you saw the speech. How'd I do? I said, Mary, I'd give you a solid B. And, it wasn't the lifting pat on the back attaboy that maybe she was hoping for. But, it was an honest answer. So anyways, I saw Tom Nelson coming down the hallway at the convention center in La Crosse. And, gave Tom he's walking. Now he's got his show props, right? He's got his his Bud Light, and he's got his spotted cow. So I walked up to Tom and I gave the old attaboy on the shoulder and I said, hell of a speech, damn fine speech, something of that effect. And Tom said, thanks, man. And he handed me the spotted cow. So I have the official Tom Nelson prop spotted cow. It's right there. I haven't even drank it yet. So, I'm going to hold it near and dear, at least till the primaries. Come back, more Devil's Advocates. It's a Monday.
Man, I've got certain information, all right? Certain things have come to light.
Lordy, I hope there are tapes.
The suspense is terrible. He's gonna go this time. I hope it'll last.
America, your children have an amazing superpower. That's right. They can help save lives by simply washing their hands. Just 20 seconds of thorough hand washing after they've coughed or sneezed or been outside can help fight against the dastardly spread of germs. Armed with only soap and water and hands, your superhero can protect you, your family, and everyone out there in America land. Amazing! Find out more at coronavirus.gov. A message from the CDC and the Ad Council.
President Trump lost the election. Joe Biden won the election.
Collectively, Republicans got 1.661 million votes, 51,000 more votes than Trump got.
He exhausted his cases. He exhausted the court challenges.
All the Republicans voted for Trump the way they voted for the assembly candidates. He would have won.
It was not rigged. It was not stolen. Donald Trump lost the election. Joe Biden won the election. It's really clear.
This message was paid for by the People for People Corporation. Donate online at p4ppc.org.
The Devil's Advocates.
Today, I made a mental note. It was 1:09 Central Time when I found out Ron Johnson was a conspirator in a coup, a traitor to the Constitution, and Ron's been something of an apologist. They seem real friendly. Well, maybe to you, Ron, because you were on the inside of the coup, and I've never made that accusation prior to today. So let's play it for the people.
This staffer stated that Senator Johnson wished to hand-deliver the fake electors' votes from Michigan and Wisconsin.
Follow the Devil's Advocates on Facebook and Twitter.
I'm just texting him back. I'm just posting a story. I'm just changing the song.
No. When it comes to distracted driving, just don't. Sending a text takes your eyes off the road for just 5 seconds, but in that time, your car can travel the length of an entire football field. Any distracted driving just isn't worth it.
Visit StopTextsStopWrecks.org. A message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, and the Ad Council.
I don't know if you know the Devil's Advocates, but the show is kind of a big deal.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show, the post-convention Monday edition. The Brie, well, I guess you'd call it the pre, not the Brie, not the cheese, the pre-January 6th urgently scheduled special sauce. I mean, they're throwing it on a Tuesday at noon, and they weren't supposed to have any more hearings this month, Fancy Brian. So I hope it's all worthwhile. I hope they got tapes. I think they're going to lay out the documentarian tapes, the interviews of the Trump family. I think that's what we're going to see tomorrow. That's the urgency. Is Lordy, it's all on tape, and it's the Trump family. So just one man's prediction, just an early hot take. We'll play it for you tomorrow, starting on the radio at high noon. J6 Hearing 6. So we'll see how that one goes. And also, there will be coverage of the Democratic Party convention, the four that seemingly have a chance at the race, the U.S. senatorial speeches. Because I know on Sunday, there was maybe 250, 300 people in the room, Fancy Brian. I leaned over to the guy next to me and said, if an average Monday afternoon, I was only talking to 250 or 300 people, I'd quit this sport. So we could probably give greater lift to these speeches than, just the attendees in the room. And knowing that this is perhaps the most important race in the nation, at least in my opinion, we think it'll merit the 5 minutes each. So we'll play the 4 candidate speeches later in the big show. Also, Wisconsin Attorney General Josh Kaul joining us today at 4:30. And I want to make a note. There will be one senatorial debate only during the primary. That's all that's probably going to happen. And I was working over the course of the weekend. Crudy, always scheming for you, our fair audience. I was trying to scheme a candidate debate of some sort, a broadcast-worthy candidate debate. And there is one scheduled, Sunday, July 17th at 6 p.m. And it will be moderated by none other than MSNBC's Chuck Todd. What a fine representation for the Dems U.S. Senate primary debate, Chuck Todd. Also, Charles Benson and Shannon Sims, they're going to moderate the senatorial debate. Now, Tony Evers will have, I guess it'll be the Republicans. They won't invite Tony down that night. The Republican gubernatorial debate, Sunday, July 24th at 6 p.m. So 2 debates, and probably 2 debates only, in a public forum setting. And here's why. I asked one of the fine candidates' campaign team, and as fate would have it, this person's a former Wisconsin Democratic Party chair, Mike Tate. No, Mike Tate. Mike Tate's at Nation Consulting, and Mike Tate was staffing the Lasry campaign. Now, despite the straw poll, and we didn't know when I was having this conversation what the outcome of the straw poll was going to be, but the perception of the Lasry team is, they're either co-first or they're close second, but they really see it as a 2-horse race. Now, the straw poll would indicate perhaps they're not even part of the 2-horse race, but whatever. Conversation, couple guys talking. And I said, I'd really like to encourage the campaigns to get involved in, a made-for-radio debate, let's say. And he said, did you see that one guy speak? He's effing crazy. And that was exactly my assessment, and no offense, but Peter Pekarsky, that was the craziest speech I've ever seen at a convention. I have no idea what you were trying to accomplish, but if I understood the nature of the speech, he was trying to claim basically every election since 2004 had been rigged for the Republicans, and therefore, essentially most or all of these Supreme Court justices were invalid, and vote Peter Pekarsky 2022. I'm not sure. I mean, he had visual aids. He had kids holding up like graphs, like he had done the math. And I'm thinking, so let me see. This Democrat in this time of big lies and rigged elections is making the case for Republican rigged elections, and therefore the Supreme Court members are invalidated, or should be. I'm not sure. I was a little embarrassed for the man. Well-meaning, but not effective. Quite crazy was conspiratorial was the takeaway. But unfortunately, he gave license, at least in this conversation, to others that want to protect their candidates, don't want their candidates to, let's just say, have someone way down the debate stage trying to make a name on them, one of the co-front runners, let's say, to their own perceptions. And I didn't see a single candidate take a whack at any of their opponents. I mean, the best we had was, I'm Spotted Cow, you're Bud Light. That's the worst any of them said about their opponents. None of them really named their opponents by name. None of them said, well, my qualifications are better because this person's this and I'm a that. None of them drew distinction, which leads me to believe that Mandela Barnes may be the future nominee because he's the front runner. And nobody so far has demonstrated that they're beating the king. And the king is the front runner. It's Mandela. Mandela is your presumptive nominee unless something changes. And the only thing that has the power, perhaps, to change the trajectory of the outcome of this primary, to my opinion, was Friday's overturning of Roe v. Wade. You would wonder if there's going to be, a candidate coming back from the field and overtaking Mandela. Well, it's Godlewski, Sarah Godlewski. She's the only female in the race. She did quite well in a close second place finish in the straw poll. I think Mandela had like 121 votes. She had 119. Small sample, just the bluest of the blue. But I can tell you, it's one of those two candidates. And Tom Nelson, I admire what Tom put forth. We'll certainly play the speeches. You be the judge. I'm not here to pick them for you. I'm just here to give you fruity steaks. They're often worthwhile. Sometimes, they're worth what you paid for them. Come back, more Devil's Advocates. I've got some fine sound. U.S. Senator Elizabeth Warren, she has endorsed Mandela Barnes. It's not an endorsement. I'm just saying, someone's got to beat the champ. More Devils on the other side. Phone lines open, 844-967-2789.
We've included a Venn diagram.
Cut through the information the deep state doesn't want you to know. Only on Devil Radio 92.7 FM and WTTN 1580 AM.
If you're a woman in Wisconsin, the Supreme Court decision overturning Roe v. Wade is a personal attack on our freedom and our independence. It may roll the clocks back here all the way to 1849. Yep, the year that Wisconsin criminalized abortion, including for rape and incest. 1849, 71 years before women even had the right to vote in the United States. We must repeal this archaic law and defend a woman's freedom to make decisions for herself, because that's what freedom and independence are all about. Paid for by the Wisconsin Democracy Campaign.
This is Pat Slattery of Slattery's Automotive Service in Verona. Established in 1973, I've been servicing and repairing cars in the Madison community for nearly 50 years. You can trust me to tell you what your car really needs and fix it right the first time. Give me a call at 608-848-6123 to schedule an appointment today. Slattery's Automotive Service, your trusted choice for local service and repairs for all your automotive needs.
AP News. I'm Ed Donahue. The House committee investigating the Capitol riot will hold a surprise hearing tomorrow. The AP's Sagar Magani reports the next hearing was supposed to be next month.
That raises expectations of new bombshells, with the committee saying it wants to present recently obtained evidence. The panel received new footage of Donald Trump and his inner circle from a British filmmaker, taken before and after the riot. It's unclear if that footage is tomorrow's subject, and a panel spokesman would not comment on the hearing's substance. There have been 5 hearings so far. At least 2 more were planned for July, with panel members saying they'd focus on domestic extremists who breached the Capitol and what Trump was doing at the time. Sagar Magani, Washington.
Some states have trigger laws in effect now that the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade, meaning abortion would be banned in those states. In Louisiana, a judge in New Orleans temporarily blocked enforcement of that state's trigger law ban. Abortion rights advocates argued it was unclear. Wisconsin Governor Tony Evers says he plans to do whatever he can to evade the state's abortion ban.
We're going to fight and fight and fight to make sure that The women in the state of Wisconsin have the same rights they had 3 days ago going forward. This is not over yet. We're going to continue to fight.
President Biden and Western allies at a 3-day summit in the Bavarian Alps say they're intent on keeping economic fallout from the war in Ukraine from fracturing the global coalition working to punish Russia's aggression. In a reversal for President Biden, a federal appeals court in New Orleans agreed to reconsider its own April ruling that allowed the administration to require federal employees to be vaccinated against the coronavirus. The Coast Guard says it has rescued 3 U.S. sailors whose vessel began taking on water during a trip from the British Virgin Islands to Bermuda. This is AP News.
For Devil Radio 92.7 FM and WTTN 1580 AM, I'm Luke Mathers with your headlines. According to the Wisconsin Department of Health Services, the 7-day rolling average of new COVID-19 cases is plateauing around 1,400 to 1,500 cases. On Friday, Congress passed the most expansive gun safety legislation in nearly 3 decades, with a bipartisan bill that expands background checks and funds red flag laws around the country. Despite the bill receiving support from Democrats and a few Republicans, not a single Wisconsin Republican in Congress voted for the bipartisan effort to address gun violence in the wake of the Buffalo, New York, and Uvalde, Texas shootings. In new findings by the Great Lakes Integrated Sciences and Assessments Program, average temperatures across the Great Lakes Basin have increased 2.3 degrees Fahrenheit since 1951, and precipitation has increased 14% over that time. Researchers warn of the implications those changes could have on the $7 billion annual fishing industry for the region. You're listening to Devil Radio.
Grass-fed, locally raised, 100% organic. The Devil's Advocates.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates radio show, the Monday edition. I welcome myself back from the DPW from La Crosse. I spent most of last week there, and we're going to get to the phones. We'll welcome back the callers momentarily at 844-967-2789. Just to close the loop on the difficulty of trying to schedule a candidate forum debate, some sort of made for radio event. Now, WTMJ has set qualifying criterion. You got to have 5,000 donors. That's the qualifying criterion. If you don't have 5,000, you don't make it to the stage. So that includes the 4 primary U.S. senatorial candidates. And the only one that's close that thinks he's going to make it is Stephen Olakara. Now, I interviewed Olakara on Saturday night, and he is asking for $1 donations, just trying to take the numerical number of donations up to the qualifying threshold. He's an interesting candidate. He's got a lot to offer. I know my friend, former Lieutenant Governor Barb Lawton, thinks the world of this guy. So perhaps he's worthy of inclusion in the 5. But you're never going to convince the quote-unquote front runners or the top 4 to include the rest. They're not trying to be inclusive. They're trying to win a race. So if you invite, the Lazaries, the Mandelas, the supposed top echelon candidates, well, they're not going to attend if you include everybody. And now that the window is open, the window meaning the political window, I can't do this round robin, and I refuse to. And I told Lazary's campaign, I have no intention of filling up the next month of my broadcast style, going candidate by candidate and treating them all equally and the same, every qualifying candidate for the ballot. Because like 3 of them, maybe 4, have any sort of fighting chance. Right now, I can barely tell you if 2 do. I think right now it's Mandela by default. But that could change. But I'm not going to be able to change that, not by persuading the front runners that they should take all comers and a made for radio debate. So I'll keep pushing, but no promises. Let's go to the phones. 844-967-2789. Paul from Chicagoland. Welcome, Paul. What do you got for us?
Hey, how you doing?
Good, sir.
So I better put you on speaker so I can hear you. So you were talking about some Wisconsin politicians saying the Supreme Court, might not be legitimate because of election fraud in the past. And, everybody talks about Florida, but Ohio in 2004 was there was some weird stuff going on.
No, I remember Kent Blackwell. I remember Harrison in Florida. I just think it's a perplexing time to try and make that case when Trump's, of course, and January 6th is all about the big lie.
Yeah, but isn't it interesting that Liz Cheney is taking the side of, election? I mean, I'm not saying that the machines were used. I mean, I totally believe Trump got his ass whooped, but the fact that Georgia just switched to machines that had some kind of paper trail. They actually count a unreadable barcode, but they had some kind of paper trail. Before that, since like 2000 or maybe even before that, they had no paper trail at all. It was Diebold machines using like Windows 2000 software, totally like they were totally showed to be like, very vulnerable. And then before they switched this new really expensive computer machine, this is all that I get from
Paul,
Brad Blog.
Let me point out to you. I didn't want to accept the outcome of the U.S. Supreme Court when they overruled the Florida Supreme Court and stopped the recount in Florida. I mean, there was a lot of pressure exerted, and you can say, well, it wasn't violent. This supposed Brooks Brothers revolution, a bunch of congressional staffers in suits show up. But when you talk to the actual people there, they felt pressured. They felt under fear of violence. So that was the first example of what they tried to do, talking about the Republicans, by any means necessary, violence if required. I'm not going to speak to the deep old machines and whatever. There are many times, and in fact, Roger Stone.
What they did the voting rolls too.
Well, we know that
the felons, they still make it really hard for a felon to vote in Florida.
Well, certainly they do, and they try to turn back the will of Florida voters who tried to include felons. Once you've paid your debt to society, you should be re-included on the voter rolls.
Yeah.
My understanding is they try to make it very hard for those people. My only point is, Paul, Roger Stone accused the former governor of the state of Wisconsin of rigging 5 elections. And I'm out here, I'm a guy that hated Scott Walker's ass, and I wanted to believe. And, when you hear it from a dirty trickster like Roger Stone, you think, man, that could be true. Right?
He's a rat fool. Yeah.
But as a liberal, I wanted to believe it.
I think it's possible that they outsourced the rat effery, and that's how Trump got elected the first time, possibly.
But Paul, I'm sorry, sir. I don't believe that. Certainly not in the state of Wisconsin. As I've done my own research, which means I got myself way more educated on the subject, I realize we've got a very decentralized voting mechanism in the state of Wisconsin. We got 1,850 different polling places. There's no way you could make this coordinated thing. And I would say, as much as I didn't like the Kent Blackwell in Ohio in 2004, as much as, I regretted the decision of the Supreme Court way back in 2000, Bush v. Gore, I still accepted those things as the rightful outcome, as the eventual outcome. Maybe not my favorite outcome, but you know what I didn't go looking for was evidence of a rigged election, quite frankly. And as much as I'd like that to be true in the case of the Scott Walker recall, man, he didn't win. It was screwed. It was rigged. But it wasn't rigged. It wasn't rigged. And I didn't like the outcome of the 2016 election. But electorally, Paul, Donald Trump won the election. It wasn't the voting machines. And on contrary, there were 3 or 4 million illegal aliens that voted for Hillary. Somehow Donald Trump wasn't even happy when he won, right? And yes, he got less votes. And he got less, W got less votes as well. And you think it's a majority rules. Well, that's not the rules in place. We've got the Electoral College rules in place. So there's certainly a lot of stuff that the minority is doing. And the Electoral College is really to keep the minority in power, the Republican minority, the white male minority. Gerrymandering's part of that. There are lots of ways that they use the rules of the system to try and stack the deck. But ultimately, they were the rules of the game. And Donald Trump won the Electoral College before Donald Trump lost the Electoral College to Joe Biden. And at the end of the day, I want to defend the integrity of the elections. We should all go out and vote. It wasn't rigged. Donald Trump just pissed off too many people. Donald Trump was chaos. Donald Trump let lots of people die through his inaction or specific actions during the COVID pandemic. That's why Donald Trump lost. But if that is the thing that we need as a Democratic Party to engage us, I mean, it came off as bat guano crazy to me. And I couldn't defend the candidate that was offering that. And I liked the guy. I just couldn't defend it because I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist. I just want to go out there and turn out the base and win some freaking elections. You know, we win Ron Johnson's seat in the state of Wisconsin. We win the former Portman seat in Pennsylvania. Maybe John Fetterman, who currently has the lead, wins that race. And you know what? Joe Manchin, it's a lot less important. We could set aside the filibuster. We can codify Roe v. Wade. Hell, if we want to, we could put 7 more justices on the U.S. Supreme Court. And all it takes is probably 1 to 2 more Democratic seats in the U.S. Senate. And you got to hold serve in the House. And if Roe v. Wade isn't engaging enough of the electorate, man, then I don't know what we're going to do. Because the alternative to voting Democrat, if you say, oh, it's not good enough, maybe it's rigged, if you don't believe in the integrity of the electoral process, if you don't believe that we can still change things at the ballot box, and you choose not to vote, the alternative is fascism. Anyways, appreciate you listening. WCPT 820, all our Chicagoland listeners. Although, you know, he's listening real time, so they play us a little bit later over the dinner hour. 844-967-2789. Let's go to a little of the sound. U.S. Senator Elizabeth Warren. And I love me some Elizabeth Warren. If I could have picked me a president and placed her in the White House, it would have been of Elizabeth Warren in the last cycle. Now, ultimately, I did refine my affection for Bernie Sanders. But I thought, you know, Bernie had lost one, and maybe that's what it took. He had to lose one to win one. I thought he was better positioned when the Democratic primary, and I think the early evidence was Bernie Sanders was onto something. Then he got down to South Carolina, and all went bad. But anyways, let's see if I can find the Warren. I want to see if I can go by the rundown here. Fancy Brian, going to need your help. Please play U.S. Senator Elizabeth Warren talking about the SCOTUS ruling on abortion. Cut 23, please.
We have never left individual rights to the states.
Yeah, because not all states believe in them. More from Elizabeth Warren. Cut 24, please.
I believe, and it has been the constitutional right of women across this nation for nearly half a century, for the woman to be able to make that decision with her doctor, with her religious advisor, with her family, but not something that the government should be in the middle of.
More from Elizabeth Warren. It should be available. Cut 25.
What we believe is that access to abortion, like other medical procedures, should be available across the board to all people in this country.
Now, Warren's going to ask President Joe Biden to take executive action. And I'm not exactly clear what that would look like, but she's the first one I've heard make the avocation. Like to play it for you now. Cut 26, Elizabeth Warren.
It also means asking the President of the United States to make abortion as available as possible with the tools he has, including medication abortion, including using federal lands as a place where abortions can occur.
I've seen questions about the wisdom of that advocacy, but anyways, I know that Elizabeth Warren is trying to give her country people options. Elizabeth Warren, cut 27. GOP, well, they're still pushing extremist judges.
Republicans have been very overt about trying to get people through the court who didn't have a published record on Roe, but who they knew, wink, wink, nod, nod, were going to be extremists on the issue of Roe versus Wade.
And she describes the court, the current court, the Supreme Court, is without legitimacy. 28, please.
This court has lost legitimacy. They have burned whatever legitimacy they may still have had.
One more, maybe two more. Cut 29, please.
Let's see how much credibility those justices have now.
And one more from Elizabeth Warren. Need more justices. She is advocating for quote unquote stack in the court. Cut 30.
I believe we need to get some confidence back in our court, and that means we need more justices on the United States Supreme Court.
Now, during the course of his campaign speech, I believe Tom Nelson at least claimed the mantle as the only Wisconsin U.S. senatorial candidate that's currently advocating to expand the courts. Now, I think if you asked a few of them, they might have a similar avocation. But Tom Nelson is the only one that made a clear point that he is for expanding the courts. Come back with us. The Monday edition, the post-convention edition. Got a fine guest coming up a little bit later in hour 2. He is Wisconsin Attorney General Josh Kaul. Met him. Well, I've met Josh before. Saw him at the convention. Nice to see him. Looking all tan. I asked the AG if he'd been golfing. He said, no, I got an 8-year-old. It's been swim meeting all summer. That's where the tan came from. Come back with us. Crudy's still pale. Like a good pale ale. 844-967-2789. More Devil's Advocates, the Monday edition.
We better be careful because that election is going to be rigged. And I hope the Republicans are watching closely or it's going to be taken away from us.
That was a hoax, right?
Council. Feeling increasingly lonely right now? You're not alone. Try joining a virtual book club or scheduling an online coffee break with coworkers to connect.
Find more self-care and coping tips at coping-19.org.
To protect her home and family in a disaster, Karen was willing to wade through water, mud, and insurance paperwork.
Yeah, I can do this.
You go, Karen! By simply understanding and updating what her insurance covers and doesn't cover now, she'll be better prepared no matter when disaster strikes. Learn other simple ways to protect your home and family before a natural disaster at ready.gov. That's ready.gov. A message from FEMA and the Ad Council.
Welcome to the Devil's Advocates.
The Republican Party on a national level, how many years did they investigate Hillary and Bill? They're still going to that.
They're still looking for emails, right? But they don't look in the Trump septic tank for half the top secret classified documents that he was flushing during his term. When one party doesn't care about governing, just don't allow anything to happen when the Democrats are in charge. And then they think the American people are going to get boonswoggled into voting Republican again.
Follow the Devil's Advocates on Facebook and Twitter.
Hi, folks. This is Kirk Bankstad at the Minocqua Brewing Company, and I am proud to introduce you to Choice, our new pink grapefruit-flavored hard seltzer. Choice was made in collaboration with Planned Parenthood of Wisconsin, and 5% of the proceeds from every can goes to support them and their fight for reproductive freedom. Choice Hard Seltzer tastes great and comes in at only 105 calories per can. Go to our website, MinocquaBrewingCompany.com, to find where you can buy Choice Hard Seltzer.
Stories come to life at your local parks and forests. They're places of wonder, and they're closer than you think. Make the forest part of your story today at a local park near you, or find one at discovertheforest.org. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Show me how to lie, you're getting better all the time, and turning all against one is an art that's hard to teach.
The Devil's Advocates, political commentary from the back of the class.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show, the Monday edition, the post-Democratic Party Wisconsin Convention edition. And I guess the pre-J6 Hearing 6 edition, that'll happen tomorrow unexpectedly at noon. The J6 committee, apparently they got some urgent evidence that they think you, the American people, should see and hear. So we encourage you, tune in right here tomorrow at noon. Devil Radio, the Shaw will play it for you live. Fancy Brian, Saturday, I went over to the lacrosse center, so the pre-convention. Wanted to go check it out. I'd been there a couple times, but wanted to see my space for broadcast and all that kind of stuff. And I get there, and the place is freaking packed. And I don't mean just simply with conventioneers. Everyone's wearing pink t-shirts. And there is about a 4-story step up. You basically can either go up the escalators or you can go up the stairs. And there's, like at 2 stories, there's a landing. And effectively, they were having a rally 2 stories off the lacrosse center floor on the landing level. And there were a number of speakers. Democratic Party chair, our recent guest, Ben Wickler, he sort of lit up the crowd. But beyond that, David Crowley, he is the Milwaukee County executive. He had a speaking role. Greta Neubauer, she is the Assembly Minority Leader. She had a speaking role. U.S. Senator Tammy Baldwin, the crowd, Tammy, they love Tammy. So Tammy was well received. She had a speaking role, and she introduced the governor, Governor Tony Evers. Evers did speak, and he said one thing in particular, and it was amplified sound, but Tony's never like a projection guy. He's sort of a quiet guy, but he was thoughtful, and he came up, and I'll just set the context. And I think we've got one quote from Tony from this sort of pre-convention rally they had in support of reproductive rights and abortive rights. And anyways, let's play the sound. I believe it's got one, Fancy Brian, if you would. Governor Tony Evers, great state of Wisconsin, speaking to the issue, the overturning of Roe, and how that affects his granddaughters. Play cut 1.
You've heard a lot already. There's a personal issue here. I have 7 grandkids that are girls or young women. Yesterday, they were made second-class citizens. Yes. That's bullshit.
He's somewhat salty and profane. Tony Evers did get a strong reaction from the crowd. And he was quiet. He kind of rung out when he said it as such. And I think that's the sentiment. I mean, people are feeling anger. And the Democratic base, and I don't think it's just Dems, but, I've spent a lot of time around the quote-unquote base this weekend. They're fired up. They are angry about this outcome. They're angry that we have turned the clocks back. Somewhere during the course of the break, I started thinking, man, it's like the 1849 law. Well, if you throw 51 years and 122 on top of that, that's what, like 173 old law? I'm not great with math on the radio, but that's an old law. And it's in force today. Now, the governor shortly thereafter, Governor Tony Evers, made something of a newsworthy statement, not just a salty statement. The governor said he would offer clemency to abortion providers that were charged under the 1849 law for being providers of abortion services. The Attorney General of the state, Josh Kaul, did also speak from the landing on Saturday, early, late morning. Josh Kaul did effectively say that it was his intent as Attorney General of the state of Wisconsin not to squander the resources, not to effectively prosecute under this law. So, you've got, what do they call it? Prosecutorial discretion. Josh claims he's going to use it. And the governor says, well, if anyone's charged, I'll offer them clemency. But that's entirely unworkable. I mean, it's what they can do, but these are little reassurance when abortive care is illegal under the law, under an 1849 law. So as a care provider, Planned Parenthood can't go out there, have, doctors performing abortive care under the hope that they won't be prosecuted by the Attorney General. And if they were, prosecuted by a local DA or whatever the case may be, that the governor would eventually extend clemency to them. You can't work. It's untenable. It's not a situation that works for women or these reproductive care doctors. And quite frankly, it doesn't work under state law.
My question is about enforcement. Let's say they wanted to bring this before. I mean, obviously they're not going to go through with prosecution, but are state troopers now going to carry a breathalyzer and pregnancy tests? How are you going to prove this? How is this going to be enforced? That's what I want to know. Well,
and the crazy thing, Fancy Brian, and I'm not going to be claim to be any sort of an expert on women's reproductive rights. I mean, we have 3 children. We're very happy. We felt blessed. We never miscarried. We never went through any of the trials and tribulations that so many couples do. But what I would wonder is, how did they know? You know what I mean? You put on Facebook, hey, I'm pregnant. We're so excited, and something happens.
But you got to wait at least 11 weeks usually.
What, to even tell Facebook?
Yeah, to even feel like you're in the clear that you can.
Well, what if you weren't in the clear? What if you've made some sort of a family announcement, you let it slip, so excited? I mean, I was telling friends of mine the day my wife handed me the stick, day one, I was telling people, now, thankfully, we had a beautiful child and one more subsequent to that. But what if you, told your friends and family and then you subsequently had a miscarriage? Are you now subject to criminal investigation? How do you prove that you didn't? You know what I mean? This is a very intrusive set of circumstances that's going to come next, because effectively you're going to investigate a woman's menstrual cycle. It's all open game. It's evidentiary pursuit. Because how do you prove or disprove the crime? Now you've criminalized a woman's body. And now, how are you going to enforce that upon her? Well, of course, you got to further invade her privacy to gain the evidence you would need for a successful prosecution. So, I mean, it's going to be worse and worse from here. And I'm not even talking about a slippery slope on other non-enumerated personal liberties that had been extended, by the Supreme Court in their interpretation of the Constitution. But now, Alito and Thomas just think are, their old-fashioned precedent. Okay to quote some sort of 16th century English common law, that's binding. But this newfangled women's rights, let's take them all. Come back. Hour 2 of the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. We've got a fine guest joining. He is Wisconsin Attorney General Josh Kaul at 4:30.
That's the issue of stare decisis.
That's bullshit.
Listen to the Shaw 101 FM and WAUK 540 AM, Waukesha's only news talk.
You got to put him at the top when it comes to experience. He was a Bernie Sanders delegate, yet he's representing a county that actually went for Trump in the last election.
And by the way, he saved a paper plant. That's a really positive thing to be able to use.
To me, he seems like the kind of guy that might have the best shot in the general election.
I'm Tom Nelson, running for the U.S. Senate, and I approve this message.
Listen to Devil Radio 92.7 and WTTN 1580 AM, Madison's home for progressive news talk radio. Tune in for the political party that is the Devil's Advocates Radio Show every day from 3 to 6 p.m. Join Native Roots Radio from 6 to 7 p.m. for updates about Native news, culture, and activism. The 7 o'clock hour is for local programming, including the Paul Revere Show on Mondays, Busted Pencils on Tuesdays, and the Up North Podcast on Wednesdays. You are listening to WTTN 1580 AM Columbus, W224 EG Madison, always streaming on the
AP News. I'm Ed Donahue. The House committee investigating the Capitol riot will hold a surprise hearing tomorrow. The AP's Sagar Magani reports the next hearing was supposed to be next month.
That raises expectations of new bombshells, with the committee saying it wants to present recently obtained evidence. The panel received new footage of Donald Trump and his inner circle from a British filmmaker, taken before and after the riot. It's unclear if that footage is tomorrow's subject, and a panel spokesman would not comment on the hearing's substance. There have been 5 hearings so far. At least 2 more were planned for July, with panel members saying they'd focus on domestic extremists who breached the Capitol and what Trump was doing at the time. Sagar Magani, Washington.
Some states have trigger laws in effect now that the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade, meaning abortion would be banned in those states. In Louisiana, a judge in New Orleans temporarily blocked enforcement of that state's trigger law ban. Abortion rights advocates argued it was unclear. Wisconsin Governor Tony Evers says he plans to do whatever he can to evade the state's abortion ban.
We're going to fight and fight and fight to make sure that the women in the state of Wisconsin have the same rights they had 3 days ago going forward. This is not over yet. We're going to continue to fight.
President Biden and Western allies at a 3-day summit in the Bavarian Alps say they're intent on keeping economic fallout from the war in Ukraine from fracturing the global coalition working to punish Russia's aggression. In a reversal for President Biden, a federal appeals court in New Orleans agreed to reconsider its own April ruling that allowed the administration to require federal employees to be vaccinated against the coronavirus. The Coast Guard says it has rescued 3 U.S. sailors whose vessel began taking on water during a trip from the British Virgin Islands to Bermuda. This is AP News. Ukraine's leader has been discussing strategy with G7 leaders about Russia.
According to a senior French diplomat, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has told leaders now is not the time for negotiation with Russia because he needs to be in a stronger position first. Zelensky apparently said he will negotiate when he will be in a position to do so, and his goal is to end the war as quickly as possible and to get out of it in the best possible position so that he can negotiate from a position of strength. Zelensky has told summit leaders he needs economic, financial and military support. I'm Charles de Ledesma.
Marlon Briscoe has died. He was the first black starting quarterback in the American Football League more than 50 years ago. Briscoe was a star quarterback for Omaha University before the Denver Broncos drafted him in the 14th round in 1968. His family says Marlon Briscoe died of pneumonia at a hospital in Connecticut. He was 76. I'm Ed Donahue, AP News.
You know, Devil Radio, your fix for progressive talk radio from Fitchburg to DeForest, always streaming at DARNWI.com.
Hi, this is Brad from Zero Res. If you need someone to help with your carpet cleaning, business or residence, please give us a call. We have the best system available and an amazing team of friendly technicians. Call us at 848-9000 or schedule online at zeroresmadison.com.
The greatest radio show ever could be your greatest advertising investment ever. Partner with the Devil's Advocates and activate our loyal, educated, and engaged audience today. In-show interviews and sponsored special events considered across Wisconsin. Affordable digital and terrestrial ads available in Chicago and Minneapolis and directly on the Devil Radio app. Make a deal with the Devils and get the Devil's Advocates bumped to your bottom line. Call or text 844-967-2789 today.
Hey, this is Rocker, and I'm touching down at the Red Rooster to kick off summer with some live music and a Rocker lemonade. House-made lemonade, a splash of sour cherry, and your choice of Rocker vodka or Rocker rye whiskey. Kick the summer off at the Red Rooster with a Rocker cocktail. Find the Red Rooster at 2513 Seaforth Road or online at redroostermadison.com. You must be 21. Please drink responsibly.
Listen to the Empowered Caregiver Show each Saturday and Sunday morning at 9 a.m. with hosts Liza Hellenbrand and Kristen Voss.
Right here on Devil Radio 92.7, WTTN 1580 AM, and the Devil Radio app.
When you're gonna turn on the radio, you gotta listen to Devil Radio 92.7.
For Devil Radio 92.7 FM and WTTN 1580 AM, I'm Luke Mathers with your headlines. Last week, Wisconsinites learned from the U.S. House Select Committee on January 6th that staff from U.S. Senator Ron Johnson's office worked to coordinate a hand delivery from Senator Johnson to then Vice President Mike Pence of a slate of fraudulent electors for Wisconsin and Michigan on January 6th. After blaming an unnamed staffer and a Pennsylvanian congressman for his office's role in the fraudulent elector scheme, Senator Johnson was confronted in General Mitchell Airport in Milwaukee on Friday by a reporter, and the senator stated he played a, quote, 2-minute role in the plan to replace Wisconsin's electoral votes. The Milwaukee Brewers beat the Toronto Blue Jays 10-3 on Sunday to win the 3-game series 2-1. Sunshine in the forecast today with light and variable winds and a high of 77 degrees. Clear skies and light winds expected to continue into the evening with an overnight low of 59 degrees. You're listening to Devil Radio 92.7 FM and WTTN 1580 AM.
Devil Radio programming is produced live in the Solidarity Realty Studios. Find them at solidarityrealty.com. Solidarity Realty. There is an alternative.
Warning, you are about to listen to the greatest radio show ever. And due to contractual obligations and to shield our airwaves and corporate licensees from any semblance of liability, responsibility, and gullibility, we must tell you the views represented on this show are not necessarily those of this station or its management. This radio show contains differing points of view on current political topics, and due to the nature of its contents, it should be heard by everyone. Thank you for listening. 3, 2, 1. Now live from the Devil Radio Studios in Madison, Wisconsin, where the political party is just beginning. Welcome to the Devil's Advocate Show. Friends proving it's never personal, only politics.
Please allow me to introduce myself.
Here is your host, Mike Crute.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show, the post-DPW Convention Monday edition. We got a fine Dem joining us a little bit later in the hour. Attorney General Josh Kaul joins today at 4:30 live via Zoom. Abortion is now illegal in the state of Wisconsin, and I've heard the governor and I heard the Attorney General, and they said, we're going to do everything we can do. And that means very, very little. And it's not because they don't have the want. They just don't have the means to do much about it. And here in the state of Wisconsin, the legislature has been gerrymandered to the point where there will be no legislative will to solve this 173-year-old anti-abortion law that now is the law of the land in the state where I live. You can't get it done through the legislature. You got damn near 2/3 Republican majorities, regardless of the votes of the people. Republicans win larger and larger majorities because that's the way the maps are set up to bake the cake for their ongoing, forever, perpetual electoral advantage. Now, I take some issue with that, but that is the facts on the ground. The only way you're going to change this or solve this problem is with a congressional, a federal level legislative majority, and you need a couple more seats, over on the Senate side for sure, because you got to overcome the filibuster. You need like 52. You got to overcome the Manchin and the Sinema filibuster. We'll perhaps talk a little more about the disaster looming thanks to Joe Manchin, but I want to turn my attention to the J6 hearing number 6, unexpectedly scheduled for tomorrow at high noon. We're going to play them live. But here are the early comments about the importance of this. The headline here at the Raw Story, one of my favorite sources. This is big. Former Senator, in this case Claire McCaskill, explains why the J6 committee might have scheduled a last-minute hearing. The House Select Committee investigating the January 6th attack on the U.S. Congress revealed that they're holding an unexpected hearing tomorrow, 1 p.m. Eastern, 12 o'clock Central. According to former Senator Claire McCaskill, Dem from Missouri, this ain't normal, and it likely means there's something significant happening. Please let her be right. Please let her be right. Here is the quote. They've done a very good job exceeding expectations, so I don't think they'll want to upset that track record. She began speaking to MSNBC's Nicole Wallace on Monday. So you have to assume this is big, because I will tell you one thing I know for sure, having spent a lot of time in D.C., members of Congress don't show up 3 days before the 4th of July weekend for just anything. McCaskill went on to explain that there are only a few reasons that a committee would rush to get someone to testify the way that they are. This is either a witness that for some, because of a frailty, an illness, maybe perhaps they're not sure of their ability to appear later, or probably much more likely that Mike Schmidt just said, they're saying they'll do it now, but they're reluctant. So there is an effort to make sure they capture the live testimony while the iron is hot, while the witness says they will do it. because they've had a lot of witnesses who have refused to give live testimony. I'm hoping it's videotape of the Trump kids, hot off the presses. That's what I'm hoping for. Again, Claire McCaskill being quoted here, though. Apparently, U.S. Senator makes you more important than Crudy. So I think that's probably what it is. Now, this is the one time as a prosecutor, I'm jealous of the committee members because obviously you cannot put a witness on the other side that the other side doesn't know about in a real trial. Surprise witnesses are only in rebuttal. And then the other side has to have opened the door. So I think this will pique interest with all of us. And I don't think they would be piquing interest if they didn't think they could deliver something. Oh, they better be delivering. Bring home the bacon, J6 committee. That's what I'm saying. And, which brings us back to a thought about U.S. Senator Ron Johnson. Now, Rojo was featured in the J6, the live committee testimony the other day, was he not? No,
he wasn't.
Something about
but he was
handing off some electors to the vice president. I wanted to do so personally. Didn't you hear something about that, Fancy Brian?
Yeah, he wanted to.
I'm sorry, man. Someone's got to turn on the mics.
Yeah, he was there, but then he wasn't there, but then he was there, but then he wasn't there. But it was real, but it wasn't real. It happened, but it didn't happen. It was only 2 minutes. A lot of things can happen in 2 minutes. Like, you know.
I conceived a couple of my kids in 2 minutes or less. I feel pretty confident. There's an interesting story over at CNN today. The headline here, this Republican senator keeps changing his story on the fake elector scheme. I think they mean Rojo. Chris Saliza, CNN editor-at-large, reporting, Ron Johnson just can't get his story straight. Last week, in a hearing of the J6 committee, we learned that Johnson's chief of staff had attempted to coordinate the handoff of a slate of fake electors from Michigan and Wisconsin to Vice President Mike Pence. Now, Pence's head of legislative affairs put the kibosh on the move before it ever happened. Said, no, thank you, don't deliver to the vice president these fraudulent fake Trump electors. So anyways, Saliza writes on. Asked about his involvement, Johnson, a Republican senator from Wisconsin, said that he knew nothing about it.
Yeah, I was not involved in this at all.
Because it's important. Here's the full exchange on Tuesday afternoon between Johnson, CNN's Manu Raju, and other reporters. These things were delivered to our office. I didn't know they were coming. I had no hand in it. My chief of staff did the right thing. He called up the vice president. No. Is that the right thing, Ron? This letter that you have delivered from somebody and you don't know who, but it comes and it's addressed to the VP, and you think the right thing to do is to hand it off to the VP because, of course, that is your proposed action. You texted, right? He didn't want it. We didn't send it to him. End this story. Big nothing burger, right, Fancy? Madhu Raju. Why did you just deliver that to the vice president without vetting it or asking more questions about it? Yes, that's a fine question, Manu. I had, similar questions. But you got to be careful. Curiosity kills the cat, right? Johnson, I didn't deliver it. We called them up. He didn't want it. We didn't deliver it. End of story. That's the second end of story in this story. But why did you even offer it without vetting it? Raju asked. Now, Rojo's response. Well, we got handed an envelope that was supposed to go to the vice president. I didn't know, so we called up the vice president. He didn't want it. We didn't deliver it. It's a non-story. Guys, this is such a non-story. So 2 end of stories and now 2 non-stories. Was that the first you had heard of it when you received the envelope? Yeah. And do you remember who gave it to you? No, it was a staff-to-staff deal. I mean, it apparently had Michigan and Wisconsin. I had no hand in any of it. Again, this lasted a couple minutes in our office. Then the episode was over. And this, guys, is a total non-story. So we've got 2 end of stories, 2 non-stories, and a total non-story. 1 conversation. Raju, Are you going to ask your aides about who this person was? Have you asked? We didn't know. Literally don't. It was staff to staff. Somebody from the house, some staff intern, and said, we got it, and the vice president needs this or whatever. I wasn't involved. I don't know what they said. But somebody from the 3 buts, Ron's about to lie when he lays out 3 consecutive buts. But somebody from the house delivered it to a staff member in my office. My chief of staff called the vice president. Hey, we got this. And the vice president said, don't deliver it. And we didn't. The one thing conspicuous by its absence, end of story. He didn't say it in this paragraph.
The story goes on.
Raju, are you curious about the identity of this person? Do you want to ask about it? Johnson, no, because there's no conspiracy here. This is a complete non-story, guys. Complete non-story. We're up to what? 3, 4, 5 non-stories and a total non-story and 2 end-of-stories. So we're up to 8 end-of-story sort of denials.
And he's calling people guys. That's how he brought you guys in. Hey, guys, boys.
So at this point, Saliza jumps back in. So according to Johnson, a staff intern from the House somehow got a hold of a fake slate of electors from 2 key swing states and was trying to pass them to the vice president of the United States. Johnson, in this retelling, was wholly uninvolved. Except, Johnson's story started to change as the week went on. By Thursday, Johnson said the fake elector slates had come from the office of Pennsylvania Rep. Mike Kelly. And Johnson also acknowledged in an interview with a local radio station, Righty Whitey Icky Vicky, right, that he had coordinated via text message with his chief of staff and Dane County Attorney Jen Trupus to make sure Pence got Wisconsin's fake elector slate. But wait, there's more. Kelly's office told the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel the congressman had not spoken to Ron Johnson for the better part of a decade and has no knowledge of the claims Mr. Johnson is making related to the 2020 election. And hence as Chris Alyssa describes it, the Grand Canyon-sized gap between Johnson's initial explanation and his second story. And the story, I think it's continued to evolve. So I'm going to need a second segment just to get all the moving parts in. Ron Johnson, keep your story straight. If you're going to commit, let's just say, attempted traitorous, treasonous insurrection against the United States, if you're going to, co-conspirator in a coup plot, you better have your alibi. You know what I mean? You better have it worked out before you start telling Manu Raju or even Icky Vicky. More Devil's Advocates. We'll be right back.
This is a big one. I'm dying. You hear that, Elizabeth? I'm coming to join you, honey.
I was not involved in this at all.
You big dummy.
Why don't you just leave me alone?
Hey, I'm Haley Kiyoko, and I know what it's like to struggle with mental health issues. If you have a friend that's going through a tough time, now is the perfect moment to reach out. Learn how to start the conversation at seizetheawkward.org.
Brought to you by the Ad Council, the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, and the JED Foundation.
President Trump lost the election. Joe Biden won the election.
Collectively, Republicans got 1.661 million votes, 51,000 more votes than Trump got.
He exhausted his cases. He exhausted the court challenges.
All the Republicans voted for Trump the way they voted for the assembly candidates. He would have won.
It was not rigged. It was not stolen. Donald Trump lost the election. Joe Biden won the election. It's really clear.
This message was paid for by the People for People Corporation. Donate online at p4ppc.org.
The radio show your mother warned you about.
Actual tyranny of a dictator. Dictator's going to dictate Putin. And what did Trump do? Trump kneeled to the man, embarrassing Republicans. And you're still with the guy? This is your front runner in 2024? You've been smoking some of Mike Lindell's crack. What are you thinking?
They're the GCCCP. We are the Devil's Advocates.
Live weekday afternoons from 3 to 6.
Hey guys, it's me, Isabella Gomez, filling in for Smokey Bear because he's got more to say than just...
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Like, if you're outside enjoying a barbecue, don't let a hamburger distract you from fire safety. Make sure you aren't dumping your hot coals or ashes onto the ground because that could start a wildfire. So take wildfire prevention seriously and let's save the world one day at a time. Juntos con Smokey Bear, podemos hacerlo. Go to smokeybear.com to learn more about wildfire prevention.
Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
You're so busy feeling good that you never question why things are going so well.
When they go low, we get high.
You wanna
The
know
Devil's
why?
Advocates.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates radio show. I tell you no lies. We are returning from the 420 break, returning to talk a little more about the strange and ever-changing case of Ron Johnson. Criminal co-conspirator or just dumb guy? Either way, it doesn't look good.
Can it be both?
Probably. 4 days ago, Rojo on his Twitter account, sort of self-defending, deflecting, if you will. The J6 committee's partisan witch hunt is revealed. They smeared me with partial and incomplete information. This sets the record straight. As I have been saying, this is a non-story driven by corporate media that is complicit in the spreading of the Dems lies. Non-story. Nothing to see here. Move along, right? He continues to say that. Now back to Saliza. I'm going to be a little redundant, but I like how he phrases it. There's a Grand Canyon-sized gap between Johnson's initial explanation, a House staff intern sent something to his office, and his chief of staff tried to pass it along to Pence, and his second story, the false slate, came from Kelly's office, and that he was on an email chain coordinating a way to get the documents in front of Pence. So which is it? Chris Saliza asked. Well, perhaps it's the further evolution of the story, because there's new news on this topic. Johnson now says he coordinated the effort to hand off the false elected. Right? This according to...
I was not involved in this at all.
Except I was, completely.
This according to Molly Beck at the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, the paper of record locally. Ron Johnson now says he helped coordinate effort to pass false elector slates to Pence, but his new explanation drew a sharp and quick rebuke. Let me read a little bit of this for your listening pleasure. After initially claiming to be basically unaware of an effort by his staff to get fake presidential elector documents to VP Pence, U.S. Senator Ron Johnson said Thursday he coordinated with a Wisconsin attorney to pass along such information and alleged a Pennsylvania congressman brought slates of fake electors to his office, a claim that was immediately disputed. The, Pennsylvania congressman part. Evidence presented this week by the U.S. House Committee investigating the J6 attack on the U.S. Capitol showed Johnson's chief of staff tried to deliver the two states' list of fake, fraudulent, corrupted presidential electors for former President Donald Trump to Pence on the morning of the U.S. Capitol insurrection, but was rebuffed by Pence's aide. Now, we've talked about the fact Johnson initially told reporters last week he didn't know where the documents came from and that his staff sought to forward it to Pence.
I was not involved in this at all.
And then he said on Thursday with WIBA AM, again, Icky Vicky, that he had since discovered the documents came from Pennsylvania U.S. Rep. Mike Kelly and acknowledged he coordinated with Dane County attorney, Trump attorney, Jim Trupis, and his chief of staff by text message that morning to get Pence a document Trupis described as regarding Wisconsin's electors. The fake, fraudulent, corrupted criminal electors.
Oh, that's what you were talking about. Oh.
Kelly's office immediately pushed back on Johnson's claim, saying Senator Johnson's statements about Representative Kelly are patently false. Mr. Kelly has not spoken to Johnson for the better part of a decade and has no knowledge of the claims Mr. Johnson is making related to the 2020 election. On Thursday, Johnson said Trupis contacted him by text message on the morning of January 6, 2021 to get a document of Wisconsin electors to Pence. But didn't our pal Rojo get, sort of confronted, if you will, at the General Mitchell International Airport. And if I understood some of that confrontation, Rojo said, well, I was only involved for 2 minutes. Well, those are the criminal 2 minutes, though.
Yeah, and 2 minutes can change your life.
It only takes a couple minutes to rob a bank, right? The 2 minutes, those are the important 2 minutes. The one where you're saying, give me all your money, or in this case, hey, VB Pence, do you want these fraudulent, corrupted, fake Trump electors that I'm more than willing to hand off unvetted to you? And then I'm going to go lie to the press about it, tell them it's a non-story 5, 6, 7 times. But really, as the truth continues to come out, it is a story, because it's a story of, co-conspirator corruption, insurrectionist action, breaking of a constitutional oath by a U.S. senator. I'd put him down for that one. Or this man is so moronic, which is also a possibility. He just doesn't freaking know what's reality, what's happening in his life, where these papers came from, who's my chief of staff, what day is it? I'm old, I'm confused. But he's also out there going after DHS today, Mayorkas. There's a leak out there. I forget the specifics of what it is that Ron's accusing others of leaking about. But, Ron's got sort of a history and might be trying to, sort of change the conversation. A little bit of coverage on the confrontation at General Mitchell International Airport. That happened late Friday after a self-described progressive political strategist confronted Rojo about his effort to give Vice President Mike Pence false elector paperwork. Lauren Windsor, a liberal activist known for her hidden camera exposés targeting Republicans, began videotaping Johnson after he got off his plane from D.C. She asked the Oshkosh Republican to respond to his statements from Thursday, in which Johnson claimed the false elector paperwork came from U.S. Rep. Mike Kelly. The allegation that Kelly's office said, hell no. First of all, we all see what actually transpired, Johnson told Windsor, referring to Kelly's rebuke. Obviously, we believe it came from his office. I never spoke with the congressman. I never said I did. He added, you got to find out what his staff, who might have talked to my staff. That's all I have to say. End of story, right? End of story. A little bit more here. Is there more? So you're saying that your chief of staff normally acts in that way, that they would not make you aware? We believed he tried to talk to Mike Kelly's office. Then Windsor tells Johnson he was playing a role in the overturning of our election. Johnson responded, I played a 2-minute role before saying, I did not. Please go away. Come back. More devils. Attorney General Josh Kaul, my fine guest, next.
Say, man, you got a joint?
I was not involved in this at all.
It'd be a lot cooler if you did.
Well, just leave me alone.
I wish you weren't a liar.
WAUK 540 AM, New Berlin's choice for news talk radio. Streaming 24/7 at WAUKradio.com. Listen to the Shaw 101 FM and WAUK 540 AM, Waukesha's only news talk radio station, bringing you a lineup of live talk radio every single weekday. Start your mornings off with Matt Flynn Direct from 6 to 8 a.m. Then find out what's going on with the Earl Ingram Show every day from 8 to 11. The Tom Hartman program is live middays from 11 to 2, right here on the Shaw 101 FM and WAUK 540 AM.
This is Norm from Martha Merrill Books in downtown Waukesha, 231 West Main Street. We've been in business now almost 28 years. We're the book detectives. We can find adult and children's books, even if they're out of print. If we can't find it, it's probably not available. At Martha Merrill's, we specialize in unique gifts. We sell puppets and stuffed animals, but we don't sell watches because we're timeless. We do gift wrapping. When you walk out of the store, you have a present ready. Martha Merrill Books, 231 West Main.
AP News. I'm Ed Donahue. The House committee investigating the Capitol riot will hold a surprise hearing tomorrow. The AP's Sagar Magani reports the next hearing was supposed to be next month.
That raises expectations of new bombshells, with the committee saying it wants to present recently obtained evidence. The panel received new...
Hello and good afternoon.
Hey, this is Josh Kaul.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Wonderful. I hear you loud and clear.
Excellent.
And we got about 2-3 minutes here right before we start. Do you have any song requests before we go, or are you ready to rock?
To make sure that the women in the state of Wisconsin have the same rights they had 3 days ago going forward. This is not over yet. We're going to continue to fight.
President Biden and Western allies at a 3-day summit in the Bavarian Alps say they're intent on keeping economic fallout from the war in Ukraine from fracturing the global coalition working to punish Russia's aggression. In a reversal for President Biden, a federal appeals court in New Orleans agreed to reconsider its own April ruling that allowed the administration to require federal employees to be vaccinated against the coronavirus. The Coast Guard says it has rescued 3 U.S. sailors whose vessel began taking on water during a trip from the British Virgin Islands to Bermuda. This is AP News.
For the Shaw 101 FM and WAUK 540 AM, I'm Sam Butson with your headlines. Last week, the Milwaukee Board of Supervisors adopted a resolution recognizing the history of discriminatory housing covenants in Milwaukee County. It also recognized that these covenants are not enforceable, with a need to advance fair housing policies. Waukesha County is the second wealthiest county in Wisconsin, second to Ozaukee County, and the 172nd wealthiest in the nation, according to a new study from Smart Asset. The study used investment income, property value, and per capita income to identify a wealth index, which provides a holistic view of what areas in the country are accumulating the most wealth. Waukesha County's wealth index is 23.9. On Saturday, hundreds of abortion right protesters took to the streets of Bayview to show their grief in the U.S. Supreme Court overturning of Roe v. Wade and ending the constitutional right to an abortion that had stood for nearly 50 years, showing that they will not back down. You're listening to the Shaw 101 FM and WAUK 540 AM.
Yeah, that's when I decided to take the law into my own hands.
Charged, never convicted. The Devil's Advocates.
Advocates Radio Show, the Monday edition. We're joined right now live via Zoom, I believe, by Wisconsin Attorney General Josh Kaul. Just saw him this weekend at the Democratic Party convention. Josh, welcome back to the Devil's Advocate, sir.
It's great to be here. Thanks.
Josh, appreciate you joining us. Obviously, sort of shocking is probably not the right descriptor. We had seen the leaked draft. We suspected that Roe v. Wade was being overturned, or at least, it was out there. But now it's reality. And Josh, this dropped on Friday, and effectively Wisconsin has reverted to the law in the books, which is an 1849 law. Josh, my understanding is abortion is illegal in the state of Wisconsin as we speak.
Well, it's certainly not being provided right now. The Planned Parenthood clinics in Wisconsin have shut down operations. And what the state of the law is, honestly, is unclear. We have this 1800s ban on the books that was never repealed. And at the same time, though, there were a series of laws passed much later that regulate legal abortion. And so there's sort of two sets of statutes on the books that are in conflict with each other right now. We're also in this very unusual position where we've had a statute that was unenforceable for almost 50 years. And whether that springs back to life is not something we've got a lot of legal precedent on, because the situation where a right that had been granted to Americans is all of a sudden taken away is not something that we're used to seeing. And so I think there's going to be a lot of litigation ahead of us, and where that all ends up remains to be seen.
Josh, over the course of the weekend, there was sort of an abortive care rally prior to the Democratic Party convention. I know you spoke there. The governor spoke there. Josh, what did you tell the people from the platform at the La Crosse Center? What was your take as the Attorney General? What sort of relief can you offer under the current circumstance?
Well, first I said that, it was a dark day for the country. Roe v. Wade transformed the country for the better. It made women in America freer and more equal, and it made it safer to have a kid, to carry a pregnancy. And the progress that was made through Roe v. Wade was lost with the Supreme Court's decision. We went back in time 49 years, and the gains that were made have now been reversed. So, on Friday, that's when that decision came down, and that rally was held on Saturday. And I said, today is the day we begin to fight back. There are a lot of things we can be doing right now to restore access to safe and legal abortion in Wisconsin. We need to advocate for legislation and continue to call on our legislators to take action. They refused to do that just less than a week ago on the day of the special session. But now that decision has come down, and they've got a responsibility to their constituents to clarify what the law is and to protect reproductive freedom. I suspect there's going to be litigation. And in the meantime, Governor Evers and I have been very clear that we're going to take whatever steps we can to mitigate the impact of this. I've been clear that I'm not going to use any Wisconsin DOJ resources to investigate or prosecute anybody for violations of the 19th century abortion ban. But we need to keep calling on our leaders and especially the legislators to take action. And until reproductive freedom in Wisconsin is fully restored, I'm going to keep fighting to restore that freedom.
Folks, you are listening to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. We are zooming in with Wisconsin Attorney General Josh Kaul. He joins us. Josh, the governor offered clemency to abortion providers that might be criminally charged or prosecuted under the law. First and foremost, I realize you are the Attorney General, but could a local level DA, if the state law is in place and in force, could a local DA charge these abortive providers? And do you think it would ever get to the point where the governor would have to extend clemency? Can they go around the AG's office? Is this a state level charge, or could this be charged on the local level and require clemency if Evers wanted to let these people off, quote unquote?
Yeah, unfortunately, the answer is yes. A DA could bring charges. The incidents that led up to the charges have to happen in the DA's county. But DAs around Wisconsin will have to make that decision. Now, I know that DA Chisholm joined a statement from dozens of prosecutors around the country saying that they would not be using their authority to enforce any abortion bans. And I know that DA Ozan in Dane County has likewise said that he's not going to enforce that ban. But, we're going to need to ask prosecutors and police chiefs and sheriffs around the state whether they would use their resources to enforce this 19th century ban. Because, ultimately each DA, each sheriff, and each police chief has to make a decision about how to use their resources. It's my view that everybody in law enforcement in the state has better things to do with their resources, no matter what you think of abortion. You've got better things to do with your resources than to be investigating and prosecuting people under this 19th century ban. I'd much rather see resources continue to go where they should, which is to fight real crime in Wisconsin. But ultimately, we've got to ask our DAs and our sheriffs and our police chiefs where they stand.
Attorney General Kaul, obviously, both you and Tony Evers are on the ballot. And I think it's not too much of a stretch to say that Roe v. Wade is on the ballot. But we realize that the legislative majorities, the Republican majorities, are fairly gerrymandered in here in the state of Wisconsin. And if our only defense is a Democratic governor and a Democratic attorney general, if that's our only thing keeping Wisconsin reproductive rights from falling off the brink, well, that's a very fragile state to be in. Josh, if there's going to be a remedy, does the remedy practically, from the state of Wisconsin's point of view, have to be a congressional remedy signed into law, presumably by a Joe Biden?
No, I don't think so. Now that Roe was overturned, there's no question that the easiest way to remedy the situation is by having Congress pass legislation that would codify Roe versus Wade. Now, so far, the Senate has not been able to do that. And if we elect a couple more Democratic senators and keep the House, I think that would become a real possibility, and I think that absolutely should be a goal in the 2022 elections. But we're not without recourse at the state level either. We do have a gerrymandered legislature, and that's going to make it a lot harder to send a clear message. But there will be competitive races, and every race where we can elect a pro-choice Democratic candidate is going to be a step in the right direction. We'll send a message. It is vital that we keep Democrats in our statewide offices. We need to have the veto. We need to have an AG who's going to stand up for the rule of law and for the rights and freedoms of Wisconsinites. And it's possible that we will have, that the state courts may play a critical role in what comes before us as well. There's going to be a big state Supreme Court election on the ballot next spring. So voters have some opportunities to send a message here. But the 2022 election, I think, will be remembered for a generation as the election that followed the decision overturning Roe versus Wade. This is the election that will send a message that will be remembered for years to come about how voters feel about that decision. And I think that if we send a very clear message that this is not something that Wisconsinites support, we are much more likely to see reproductive freedom restored in Wisconsin than if we don't have that kind of message sent.
Folks, you're listening to the Devil's Advocates. Got a fine guest live via Zoom. Wisconsin Attorney General Josh Kaul. Josh, I'm still worried about the 2020 election, and I think there are a lot of Republicans in the state of Wisconsin still trying to relitigate the 2020 election. Sir, during the January 6th committee hearing testimony last week, U.S. Senator Ron Johnson was announced as sort of a willing co-conspirator, at least in the delivery of the false Wisconsin electors, or it was his goal, or, maybe he's just a willing dupe, but he was willing to deliver the false electors to the vice president of the United States. And of course, that was part of a greater coup effort, at least in my opinion, Josh. The fraudulent Trump electors here in the state of Wisconsin, we've talked about this ad nauseum, sir. What role does the Attorney General have to investigate that possible crime? And do you perceive it as a crime under state law, or is there nothing currently on the books under state law that prevents someone from making a fraudulent representation of this sort?
Well, first, we investigate cases, and we use our prosecutorial authority where appropriate, based on the facts before us, based on the law. And that is true in any case, no matter what the context is. We don't generally comment on details regarding either ongoing investigations or potential investigations. And so I'm not going to speak with any detail here regarding the electors issue or the legal implications of it with respect to our office. What I can say, though, is that it is vital, and I'm really glad to see the progress that's being made, that there be a federal investigation into all different aspects of this effort to overturn the results of a free and fair election. I mean, we very clearly had an attempted coup after the 2020 election, and the people who broke the law and contributed to that effort need to be held accountable. I know that the Deputy U.S. Attorney General has said that there is a federal investigation going on into the electors in different states around the country. There's been reporting about people being interviewed and being subpoenaed by the U.S. Department of Justice, and I think that absolutely should be happening. There's also obviously a lot happening with the January 6th Commission, and investigations that involve federal entities need to be done thoughtfully and in coordination between state and federal investigators, and in a way that best serves the interests of the investigation. So again, I can't speak to specifics about Wisconsin DOJ's role, but I do think it's not only appropriate, but really vital that the investigation that's ongoing at the federal level continues.
Josh, your colleague as Attorney General in the state of Michigan, Dana Nessel, who's been on the show a few times, she made the statement that she felt like it was a violation of Michigan law, but she also pointed out the similarities between these false elector schemes certainly made it seem like it was a multi-jurisdictional sort of investigation and possibly a prosecution. Josh, does the multi-jurisdictional nature, does that handcuff your office? Does that put you in a weird position if you can speak to it, sir.
Yeah, well, I won't speak to the specifics of, again, the electors case, but I can speak generally to the point about cases that go across jurisdictions. You know, I spent part of my career as a federal prosecutor in Baltimore, and I worked on cases where the federal government was involved in investigations, but also state entities may be involved as well. And I can say a couple of things. One is when you have activity that crosses multiple states, and you know, there may be conduct in many different states that law enforcement would be interested in. The ideal way to investigate those cases is at least to have them led by the federal government, because the federal government has authority to conduct those investigations. They don't have to worry about which state particular action happened in. Secondly, it's important when there's an investigation conducted for there to be one investigation and not parallel investigations going on separately and at the same time. If you have two separate investigations into the same conduct, that can lead to people stepping on each other's toes. You might have somebody who's, for example, a cooperating witness in one investigation, who, you know, the other investigation may not be aware of that, and that could complicate their strategy. Having one unified investigation is important. Having that kind of investigation doesn't preclude both federal and state charges from being brought in a case. And so, for example, you know, I worked on drug conspiracy cases where some of the defendants would be charged federally, and then separately some defendants would be charged in state court. So, you know, those are the principles that are important in any kind of context where you've got any sort of potential multi-state criminal investigation. And so, so the fact that something's going on in multiple states doesn't preclude states from being involved, but it also doesn't, but you know, those kinds of things have to happen in coordination.
Hey, Josh, we're about out of time here. I know you're running to be the Attorney General of the great state of Wisconsin again. If people want to support your campaign, how can they get involved, sir?
Please go to joshkaul.org. We are going to have our freedoms on the ballot this year, including our reproductive freedom, and it's critical that we all get out and exercise our voices at the polls.
Thank you so much, Wisconsin Attorney General Josh Kaul. Come back, more Devil's Advocates.
Good luck. We're all counting on you.
Being a father is an honor, a challenge, a duty, and a testimony. I want to be legendary for you because I found everything.
All right, thanks for having me, guys.
Thank you very much, Josh. Really appreciate the time. Then I got some land I'd like to sell you outside of Fukushima. Check out the entire podcast library at darnwi.com.
Hi there, I'm Kirk Bankstad, and I own the Minocqua Brewing Company. And I also have a super PAC. We make good trouble in the North Woods of Wisconsin. You can support our efforts at the MinocquaBrewingCompany.com and buy our woke gear like t-shirts, hoodies, and trucker hats. Enter the code RADIO and get 10% off on your next purchase. A portion of all sales support the Minocqua Brewing Company Super PAC, which is dark money meant for good. That's the MinocquaBrewingCompany.com.
My Shiro always goes the extra mile, stretches every dollar, puts others first. But now it's your time, Mom. Get free tips to help boost your retirement savings now at aceyourretirement.org.
Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Come on, man. And with the local DBC news, Ellen Cool J with a triumphant comeback.
The Devil's Advocates, making radio great again.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates radio show. Appreciate our most recent guest. Next time we're making him call in, though, man. Attorney General Josh Kaul in need of a better Zoom mic, but we'll work it out. we'll work it out. I hope you were able to hear all the fine content provided. That's the most important thing. And Fancy Brian, I've just booked another fine guest for this fine program. Still working even during the commercial breaks. John Nichols from the Cap Times and the Nation going to join us top of the 5 o'clock hour. So that's like 10 minutes away. So that's good news. And our little buddy Dominic, another unexcused absence. No, he had it planned, but come on, man, we're going into like a 3-4 day weekend. You had to take off the Monday before. Must be what? An extended summer fest. Is big band playing tonight? What's going on?
I can't tell you, but I guarantee you it's Summerfest related. Whatever it is, it probably is. He's the Summerfest king now.
He is partying wherever he's at. He's having a good time, I suspect.
Even when interviewing candidates or important people.
You know, I had a hell of a good time this weekend at the Democratic Party convention, but I think it was the first one I've ever been to unchaperoned by Dominic. You know, sometimes he kind of takes the edginess off Crudy. Apparently, I've got a reputation for being somewhat blunt, Fancy Brian.
Well, it's a
it precedes me.
Well, you've definitely earned it for sure, and it's not a bad thing.
Well, I'll tell that to a few of the candidates. They seem a little leery of my bluntness occasionally.
Well, when you're political, that's kind of how it is.
Did you see what happened to Rudy Giuliani over the weekend?
I heard snippets.
Snippets, yes, that's one way of putting it. Rudy Giuliani was kind of welcomed, you might say. You know, someone wanted to touch him and let him know they were a big fan of, Rudy Giuliani. Who's not a big fan of Rudy? Where'd I hide this one? I can't believe I can't find my Rudy stuff. Well, here's one. Now, a man apparently walked up to Rudy, who was on the campaign trail for his kid, Andrew, the ne'er-do-well son of Rudy Giuliani. And I mean, you can hardly blame the kid. The crazy hardly falls far from the tree. But anyways, the old man was out campaigning for the kid. That's my understanding. And I don't know if they were, at a grocery store, something of the nature. A ShopRite grocery store. I think ShopRite's a grocery store. But apparently one of the workers who was arrested after he allegedly hit Rudy Giuliani in the back has had his charges downgraded, according to the New York Post. Now, it seemed a little much that this guy got charged. Rudy's, it hit me like a ton of bricks. And effectively, and I've seen the video, let me describe it. Daniel Gill, 39, left the Staten Island criminal court after his arraignment Monday. Gill, who has no previous criminal history, had his charges downgraded to third-degree assault, third-degree menacing, and second-degree harassment after over the caught-on-camera attack inside the supermarket. He was initially charged with second-degree assault involving a person over the age of 65. What, you can't smack Rudy on the back because he's old? He's
Stop
old.
touching me all the time.
He was allowed to be released on his own recognizance. Gill's defense attorney, Susan Plattis, said it appeared to be a tap on the back and not a slap. This is not a criminal contact. It's very unlikely that the touch could have caused any injury. So to call this assaulted the third or even menacing is a stretch. Now, Giuliani refused medical attention at the scene, but complained of swelling and much more pain due to the incident. Security footage of the incident, they're calling it an incident, the brouhaha at the ShopRite. The incident shows Gill coming up behind Rudy Giuliani and slap him on the back before apparently exchanging words with him. While the slap doesn't seem to reflect Giuliani's account, Giuliani said it was a big deal. The video says no big deal. He can be seen slightly lurching forward after Gill makes contact with his back. Giuliani has called for Gill to be locked up. Lock him up! Lock him up! Say he could have easily been killed if he'd have been knocked to the floor. If only it were that easy to kill Giuliani. This guy should be in prison, Giuliani said during a virtual press conference ahead of Gill's court appearance, then later slammed the downgrading of the charges, saying, "Finally, I thought we had a DA in New York and Staten Island who was a real DA in favor of protecting victims and not letting the criminal go free." Giuliani claims the man said the former New York City mayor kills women due to a stance on abortion. What else did he say?
I've fallen and I can't get up.
I know. I wish I had the specific quote. Like, you're a scumbag, and like slapped him on the back. Like, how you doing, scumbag? You kill women, or something of that sort. You know, and he gave, and I've also been guilty of this form of, you know, menacing or third degree assault. I've confessed on air, although statute of limitations far exceeded. But I smacked the heck out of the back of a kid's head for sitting at my desk, put my feet up on it. And, you know, I gave him the old, I actually lined it up because I had minor surgery on my right hand. So I couldn't use my good whacking hand. I had to line up the left hand, and, you know, it was deliberate. I had to make sure I had a good approach angle. You know, if you're going to backhand off-handed, you got to line it up. So I just I smacked this kid on the head, left like a red handprint on the back of his neck, and meant to do it. Absolutely. Guilty. But anywho, the kid had it coming, kind of like Rudy Giuliani had it coming. And, you know, I'm sure he'd like to raise hell, but, you know, at the end of the day, hearty smack on the back or the back of the head, you know, technically it might cross a line. You probably shouldn't do that with regularity, but if someone's really got it coming, you know, give them the old sugar smack. It's good enough for my breakfast cereal. It's good enough for that kid who had his feet on my desk, and it was good enough for Rudy Giuliani.
Speaking as a former bouncer, I have many things to say.
Would you throw a guy? I mean, if you saw one guy walk up and smack another guy on the back, you know, and say, "Hey, scumbag," would that get you thrown out?
Yeah, I'd get him thrown out unless the other person was a friend of theirs, and they were like, "We're just being idiots." I'm like, "Please stop being idiots, because we can't assume either way. And then if you do it again, we'll throw you both out."
Yeah, but criminal arrest? Would you go get a guy charged?
No. And if the cop came to me to give a report, I'd say, "Yeah, dude, smacked him upside the head. It's fine."
Dude, like your second day on the job, you were in a acting role where you played a mob bouncer on TV, and you threw the mobster out in the alley, and then you spit on him.
Yeah.
Would you have thrown the guy out and spit on the Giuliani smacker perpetrator?
I haven't spit on anyone in real life, but I've definitely thrown a couple people in dumpsters.
In real life?
That
was just a friend. You guys were just kidding, just being idiots.
Just friendly.
Wasn't Giuliani, was it? Come back. We got a fine guest joining us for the Happier Happy Hour. He is John Nichols from The Nation. Your phone calls always welcome here at 844-967-2789.
Take your hand, you stick it in your ass like this.
Sometimes when we touch, if you touch me again, I'll kill you.
Let's have trial by combat.
I've fallen and I can't get up.
Wisconsin, you know that Drew Holiday and Brooke Lopez are
and WTTN 1580 AM, Madison's home for progressive news talk radio, bringing you a lineup of live talk radio every single weekday. Start your mornings off with Matt Flynn Direct from 6 to 8 a.m. Then join the Stephanie Miller Show every weekday morning from 8 to 11. The Tom Hartman program is live middays from 11 to 2. Right here on Devil Radio 92.7 and WTTN 1580 AM.
Brian, what the heck are you doing?
I'm making a patio.
When I told you it was patio season, I didn't mean we had to make one of our own.
But I got all this grout all over me now.
Yeah, but I meant we need to go see Hawk at the all-new Jade Monkey on Cottage Grove Road. They've got an awesome patio, and it's the perfect place to stop for a cocktail after the show.
Jade Monkey has a patio? Why don't we go there?
Exactly. Now put down those power tools and let's go grab a drink.
That's all right. I was done anyway.
Suck down drinks so we don't have to suck.
Okay.
You are listening to WTTN 1580 AM Columbus, W224 EG Madison, always streaming on the Devil.
AP News. I'm Ed Donahue. The House committee investigating the Capitol riot will hold a surprise hearing tomorrow. The The AP's Sagar Magani reports the next hearing was supposed to be next month.
That raises expectations of new bombshells, with the committee saying it wants to present recently obtained evidence. The panel received new footage of Donald Trump and his inner circle from a British filmmaker, taken before and after the riot. It's unclear if that footage is tomorrow's subject, and a panel spokesman would not comment on the hearing's substance. There have been 5 hearings so far. At least 2 more were planned for July, with panel members saying they'd focus on domestic extremists who breached the Capitol and what Trump was doing at the time. Sagar Magani, Washington.
Some states have trigger laws in effect now that the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade, meaning abortion would be banned in those states. In Louisiana, a judge in New Orleans temporarily blocked enforcement of that state's trigger law ban. Abortion rights advocates argued it was unclear. Wisconsin Governor Tony Evers says he plans to do whatever he can to evade the state's abortion ban.
We're going to fight and fight and fight to make sure that the women in the state of Wisconsin have the same rights they had 3 days ago going forward. This is not over yet. We're going to continue to fight.
President Biden and Western allies at a 3-day summit in the Bavarian Alps say they're intent on keeping economic fallout from the war in Ukraine from fracturing the global coalition working to punish Russia's aggression. In a reversal for President Biden, a federal appeals court in New Orleans agreed to reconsider its own April ruling that allowed the administration to require federal employees to be vaccinated against the coronavirus. The Coast Guard says it has rescued 3 U.S. sailors whose vessel began taking on water during a trip from the British Virgin Islands to Bermuda. This is AP News. Ukraine's leader has been discussing strategy with G7 leaders about Russia.
According to a senior French diplomat, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has told leaders now is not the time for negotiation with Russia because he needs to be in a stronger position first. Zelensky apparently said he will negotiate when he will be in a position to do so, and his goal is to end the war as quickly as possible and to get out of it in the best possible position so that he can negotiate from a position of strength. Zelensky has told summit leaders he needs economic, financial and military support. I'm Charles de Ledesma.
Marlon Briscoe has died. He was the first black starting quarterback in the American Football League more than 50 years ago. Briscoe was a star quarterback for Omaha University before the Denver Broncos drafted him in the 14th round in 1968. His family says Marlon Briscoe died of pneumonia at a hospital in Connecticut. He was 76. I'm Ed Donahue, AP News.
You know, supplying your political fix in the back roads, WTTN 1580 AM and Wisconsin's home for Devil Radio.
Hi, this is Brad from Zero Res. If you need someone to help with your carpet cleaning, business or residence, please give us a call. We have the best system available and an amazing team of friendly technicians. Call us at 848-9000 or schedule online at zeroresmadison.com.
Hey, this is Rocker, and I'm touching down at the Red Rooster to kick off summer with some live music and a Rocker lemonade. House-made lemonade, a splash of sour cherry, and your choice of Rocker vodka or Rocker rye whiskey. Kick the summer off at the Red Rooster with a Rocker cocktail. Find the Red Rooster at 2513 Seaforth Road or online at redroostermadison.com. You must be 21. Please drink responsibly.
President Trump lost the election. Joe Biden won the election.
Collectively, Republicans got 1.661 million votes, 51,000 more votes than Trump got.
He exhausted his cases. He exhausted the court challenges.
All the Republicans voted for Trump the way they voted for the assembly candidates. He would have won.
It was not rigged. It was not stolen. Donald Trump lost the election. Joe Biden won the election. It's really clear.
This message was paid for by the People for People Corporation. Donate online at p4ppc.org.
Listen to the Empowered Caregiver Show each Saturday and Sunday morning at 9 a.m. with hosts Liza Hellenbrand and Kristen Voss.
Right here on Devil Radio 92.7, WTTN 1580 AM, and the Devil Radio app.
You've merely made radio your ally. I was born on the radio. Devil Radio 92.7.
For Devil Radio 92.7 FM and WTTN 1580 AM, I'm Luke Mathers with your headlines. After the United States Supreme Court overturned 50 years of legal precedent in Roe v. Wade on Friday, abortions became a felony in the state of Wisconsin. Over the weekend, Democratic Governor Tony Evers said he will provide clemency to any physician that is charged under the state's 1849 law outlawing abortion. Since the Supreme Court's ruling on Friday, Attorney General Josh Kaul reaffirmed his stance of not prioritizing the archaic law at the Wisconsin Department of Justice if elected to a second term as the state's top law enforcement agent. District attorneys in the state's two largest counties also said they will not be prosecuting individuals under the Wisconsin law that was passed before women had the right to vote. Sunshine in the forecast today with light and variable winds and a high of 77 degrees. Clear skies and light winds expected to continue into the evening with an overnight low of 59 degrees. You're listening to Devil Radio 92.7 FM and WTTN 1580 AM.
Devil Radio programming is produced live in the Solidarity Realty Studios. Find them at solidarityrealty.com. Solidarity Realty. There is an alternative.
Warning, you are about to listen to the greatest radio show ever. And due to contractual obligations and to shield our airwaves and corporate licensees from any semblance of liability, responsibility, and gullibility, we must tell you the views represented on this show are not necessarily those of this station or its management. This radio show contains differing points of view on current political topics, and due to the nature of its contents, it should be heard by everyone. Thank you for listening. 3, 2, 1. Now live from the Devil Radio Studios in Madison, Wisconsin, where the political party is just beginning. Welcome to the Devil's Advocate Show. Friends proving it's never personal, only politics.
Please allow me to introduce myself.
Here is your host, Mike Crute.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show, the Monday edition. Rolling into the happy hour. No Dom, but I've got a fine co-devil. He joins me right now live via phone. He is John Nichols from The Nation, from the Cap Times locally. John, nice seeing you this weekend. Thanks for joining me at the big DPW convention at the table.
Don't you think that lacrosse is kind of the prettiest town in Wisconsin?
Holy schmoly, John, I can barely hear you, man.
I'm sorry. Don't you think that lacrosse is sort of the prettiest town in Wisconsin?
It is definitely God's country, man. If I could have figured out how to make money in lacrosse, I might have lived there forever, John. I love it.
It's a cool town. Yeah. And it's like got a great downtown, fabulous record store, like totally cool record store. I think it's Dripless. Decent little bookstore, great coffee shops, good Indian restaurant. I mean, it's hipper than most parts, it's hipper than most big cities.
Buddy, every crap hole I lived in college is still standing too. They've all got memorial plaques at the base. One of Crudy's mini party houses.
Do you not know that's the deal? I tell you this, you just nailed one of the greatest facts about Wisconsin. Lacrosse has never closed a bar.
No, they're all still there. Seemingly, John. They still got the six-pack, although we didn't drink all of it this weekend.
Yeah, packaged goods, as it's referred to.
Well, John, let me ask you, the Roe v. Wade hit as the Democratic Party opened their convention. And obviously it hit like a ton of bricks, but it couldn't be that the Dems didn't see it coming. I mean, the leaked ruling was 2 months ago. And I'm not specifically talking about the Wisconsin Dems, but the national Dems left me wanting, John. I feel like they were flat-footed in their response. I think Pelosi read a poem and some others
saying God bless America.
Yeah, and I got lots of fundraising appeals. Roe's been overturned. Send me $15. And somehow, John, that didn't do it for me, man.
Of course, it's a terrible look. You're exactly right. That the response to this thing is not to sing God Bless America, which is really not that great a song anyway. There are a lot better patriotic songs than that, including America the Beautiful and This Land Is Your Land. Even our national anthem's a little better than that. And it's not to go begging for money. People are going to give the money. I mean, that's the thing. There'll be plenty of resources to fight for people who are pro-choice candidates. The proper response is to do what, and to his credit, I'm going to give it to Tony Evers, is to do what Tony Evers did. Examine your power, figure out what you can do, and then move immediately to do it. And so, to his credit, and I don't always compliment Evers. I've seen times when he hasn't been, everything I'd want him to be. But to his credit, he looked at it and he said, number one, going to veto anything the Republicans do to make it harder to get an abortion in Wisconsin, right? So that's good. That's solid. That's not enough, but that's a good start. Number two, not going to appoint anyone as a district attorney who doesn't pledge that they will not prosecute under the 1849 law, which bans abortion. And number three, says he will give clemency to anyone who is convicted under that law. Now that's a good response. And just think if Joe Biden had said that. If Joe Biden had come up and said, you know, don't know what's going to happen in the 2022 elections. I'm hoping Democrats do really well. Boy, if Republicans pass anything to try and make it harder to get an abortion, I'm vetoing that. Absolutely, no question, no compromise. Number two, I'm not appointing anyone to any position that isn't committed to fighting against this ruling. And number three, as President of the United States, I will issue pardons, even if I have to issue thousands, hundreds of thousands of pardons in Alabama, Mississippi, Oklahoma, Texas, any place in this country of anybody who's convicted under any law that bars a woman from exercising her reproductive rights.
Well,
I would have liked.
I like the notion, John, and certainly I'd love to see Joe Biden take up something similar to what both Evers and Josh Kaul said. Josh Kaul, the Attorney General, who was just on the program, he also said effectively, we're not going to prosecute. We're not going to waste our prosecutorial resources on these laws. But John, that's a very fragile piece. You know what I mean? If these two guys, if Evers and Kaul get beat, well, hell, man, it's pandemonium. It's chaos. It's prosecute them all.
Well, I agree, but you go down fighting, right? I mean, and let me offer you another notion here. I totally agree with your point. But the fact of the matter is, I don't think you do get beat if you fight. I think that if you bring clarity to this debate, if you bring clarity to this struggle, you win. I think people are willing to go vote. And you know what? I certainly hope that our Republican friends condemn Tony Evers for saying he's going to give clemency. I hope they attack Tony Evers and Josh Kaul for saying they're going to try and block any prosecutions. I hope they go after Evers every way they can. I hope they spend millions of dollars advertising that fact, because Wisconsin is a 60% pro-choice state. Only 11% of Wisconsinites say they favor the kind of across-the-board ban on abortion rights that Republicans who are running for governor promote. So the more this becomes an issue, and the firmer and harder that Tony Evers and Josh Kaul go, the more likely it is that they get reelected.
Well, John, does this shake up the race? Obviously, I got to interview many of the fine U.S. senatorial candidates. And as I do the math, John, the real remedy is through passing a law, codifying Roe v. Wade, and then having Joe Biden sign it into law. And the only way that's going to happen, John, is if we win a larger legislative majority in the U.S. Senate, perhaps start with Ron Johnson's seat. So do you think it shakes up the race for the U.S. Senate? Johnson was obviously in favor of overturning Roe. He celebrated it, John.
Absolutely. I'm just gonna say hi to Manu Raju, who is literally sitting on the deck at the Union Terrace, covering the race from the Union Terrace. Now I'm back to my radio interview. I'll come back and talk to you in a minute. All right. So, brother, the fact of the matter is that Ron Johnson is he's incredibly unpopular. Like, nobody likes him right off the bat. And now you've got an issue that can quantify it and actually has resonance in the suburbs and in a lot of parts of the country. So bottom line is this. Does it shake up the race? Absolutely it does. The only challenge on it is, do you have a Democrat who is going to say the right things about it to energize and mobilize people? You cannot, this is the key thing about politics, which an awful lot of Democrats don't understand. And that is that in Wisconsin, you don't win simply by, filling the void, i.e., we don't like the Republicans, so is there somebody on the other side? That's not how it works. You have to actually put something forward that is strong. And so I'm not telling people who to vote for. I think there's a lot of good candidates and people can sort that out. But I will tell you that Sarah Godlewski's response to this has been the right response, right? She's saying, I'm pissed at Democrats for not codifying this in the past when they had control of the Senate. That is the thing that you should be saying, right? Not, oh, I hate Republicans because Republicans always get everything wrong. I think people know. What they want to hear is, do you have clarity on this? Do you understand that this isn't just about Republicans? This is also about Democrats who failed to stand up on these issues. And the fact of the matter is that Godlewski, I'll give her due on this. There's other issues I think other candidates are doing a great job on. But on this one, she's had the right message. It's been one that's very angry, very, as she says, she's pissed. And I think that's one of the reasons, by the way, Kurt, that she virtually tied in the convention poll, the straw poll at the convention, is I think people heard that, and they heard that anger, and they liked it.
Well, we were both in the room when she delivered her speech, and she wore pink, and she is the only female candidate in the senatorial field currently. So if there is a pink wave coming, seemingly it would be Godlewski's to pick up the mantle of. I thought her speech was well delivered. I thought it was very good. And John, it was just a whisker. She only lost to Mandela Barnes in the room by 2 votes, I believe.
If one person had switched, right? If one person had switched, it would have been a tie. If 2 people had switched, it would have been hers. Don't take anything away from Mandela Barnes on that, by the way. He went into that convention as somebody who's got a lot of advantages, and he did win. And so give him that. But I do think that the power of Godlewski's remarks really mattered. It was a big deal. And I think that it had some resonance. And what I'm saying here is that's a lesson for all the Democrats to take in. Don't treat this issue, a woman's right to choose, as one of a list of issues. You know how Bill Clinton used to do his laundry list? He read off 55 issues that he cared about, and so tried to satisfy everybody with a one-liner. Don't do that. Don't do that. Make this a central issue. Make this not the only issue, but one of your central issues, so that people actually know, including people who are very frustrated by our politics and maybe want to give up on it, that people actually know it matters to come vote for you.
John Nichols,
that's the heart of the matter.
Before you sneak off and have a couple of cold ones with Manu Raju, and by the way, buy him one for Crudy. I'll pay you back because I owe that guy a beer after he questioned Ron Johnson.
I know.
You got 5 more minutes for us on the other side, John?
Yeah, I'll talk to you in a minute.
Okay, buddy. Yeah. More with John Nichols. He was one of my many party friends at the Democratic Party convention this weekend. We'll bring him back on the other side. I want to get his opinion. Did the speeches, I thought Sarah Godlewski delivered, but did the speeches move the needle? And if there's time, Evan, I'm looking to you for reassurance here. I believe we've got the 4 primary U.S. senatorial candidates. We're going to play them before the hour's over. So if you missed the speeches, and that's most of you guys, we're going to play them for you, the important ones. Come back, more with John Nichols, live from the Memorial Union in Madison. And I'm here doing inside recess, I guess. I'm in studio. But we'll keep it going. We'll keep it rolling. The happy hour continues. Come on back with us.
I was not involved in this at all.
What'd you do?
Your children have an amazing superpower. That's right. They can help save lives by simply washing their hands. Just 20 seconds of thorough hand washing after they've coughed or sneezed or been outside can help fight against the dastardly spread of germs. Armed with only soap and water and hands, your superhero can protect you, your family, and everyone out there in America land. Amazing! Find out more at coronavirus.gov. A message from the CDC and the Ad Council.
President Trump lost the election. Joe Biden won the election.
Collectively, Republicans got 1.661 million votes, 51,000 more votes than Trump got.
He exhausted his cases. He exhausted the court challenges.
All the Republicans voted for Trump the way they voted for the assembly candidates. He would have won.
It was not rigged. It was not stolen. Donald Trump lost the election. Joe Biden won the election. It's really clear.
This message was paid for by the People for People Corporation. Donate online at P4PPC.org.
My fine guest, Maggie Dawn, attorney at law. I thought that the laws of the United States were supposed to evolve with societal norms. The vast majority of Americans, 70% approximately, believe that Roe v. Wade should be the law of the land. So that seems exactly contrary to the way the courts are supposed to evolve with our nation.
I'll just say this. The guy in Colorado can't be forced to make a gay wedding cake, but I can be forced to make a baby. I don't know about you, but that makes no damn sense to me.
Follow the Devil's Advocates on Facebook and Twitter.
Pa, why can't we telegraph while riding a horse?
Son, there ain't no one to blame but Jeffro. He was riding old Betsy the Stallion, tip-tapping away at his telegraph, when blam, ran right into the side of the saloon.
Well, if Jeffro can't do it, neither should you. Don't text and drive.
Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org. A message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, and the Ad Council.
Kicking ass and taking names since the Wisconsin Uprising. The Devil's Advocates.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show, the Monday Happy Hour. I'm happy because I got John Nichols live from the Memorial Union on the phone. He's apparently tipping them back with Manu Raju, all the important people at the union. But we appreciate you sticking around for a few more minutes, John. Got to ask you about these speeches. And I saw Godlewski's speech. I thought it was very good. I saw Mandela's speech. I thought it was very good. But I thought Tom Nelson's speech was perhaps the best one of all. And he used the props, the spotted cow. He was the good Wisconsin beer. And, everyone else was Bud Light. I felt it was evocative. John, do you think anybody cares about the Sunday morning speeches, though?
Well, the Democrats screwed up, right? You should have the speeches on Saturday, like afternoon, and then you do the straw poll, right? Because then you can get a flavor of, how people respond. Maybe somebody really does dazzle the room and those numbers shift. Instead, they started doing the straw poll a day before the speeches. And so you end up in this kind of messed up situation where it's not really a measure of how good or how bad one candidate did. It's basically, name recognition, some of the other, basics within the Democratic, base voters, which is obviously convention goers. So Democrats screwed up in that regard. With that said, there's no question in my mind that Tom Nelson gave the blowout speech. And I'll tell you why. When I go to a convention, I sit in the back of the room, usually to the side. I don't want to be up front. I don't want to be in a good position where, you kind of get all the excitement of it. I want to be, away from where the action is and see if anybody catches the whole room, right? If they get people in the back rows excited. The one candidate who got up there and started out with a just okay response, that's Nelson. He came on stage. He got, a smattering of nice applause, but nothing overwhelming. The one candidate who, in the course of his speech, got the whole room excited, cheering, applauding, laughing, the whole bit, was Nelson. There's no question of that. And you got to give him that due because he started out without that. And so that's a very significant speech. The other candidate who I think started out with more of the room and kept the room was Godlewski, right? And I think her address really it resonated. It worked. When she walked off stage, there were people on their feet cheering, and it was very, very effective. I thought Alex Lasry gave a decent speech, but not one that electrified the room.
I felt he fell flat, John. You're nice. Yeah, right. It seemed like his first big speech.
Yeah, and it was just okay. Mandela Barnes gave a speech to a room that liked him already, and he kept that good feeling, but I don't know that he advanced himself a whole lot there. You know what I mean? It was a solid speech. It wasn't, one that totally electrified everything, but in a sense, he's the front runner. More and more that seems to be the case. And so he held his face, and that's fine. That's good. So I guess the way to understand this, the way to have a perspective on it is that anybody who's there saying, who's got some populist energy, who can really, charge up a room. I think Nelson got some points on that. the reality, of course, is that this room isn't just looking for populism. The room is also looking for who they think can actually beat Ron Johnson. And I would say in that case, again, I am not always telling you that Godlewski does everything right, but I do think she sort of hit that sweet spot on Sunday. And that was good for her.
You know, interestingly, John, maybe only to me, but I've been the first one to greet two of the candidates as they've left the stage after giving very big convention speeches. One was Mary Burke back in 2014. And as fate would have it, she and I bumped into each other as she was coming off stage, and I was probably looking for the bar. But she asked me how she did, and I gave her a solid B, and she seemed a little crestfallen, but she was no better than a B. And I saw Tom Nelson. What's that?
Yeah. Every candidate wants an A.
Well, she didn't get an A until she conceded. That was the best speech of her life, sadly in concession.
Bad timing.
I saw Tom Nelson, and immediately after he came off the stage, he's still holding his prop. He's got his Bud Light. He's got his spotted cow, and I gave him the old shoulder tap, and I said, hell of a speech, Tom. And Tom looked at me, and he got a big grin, and as fate would have it, John, I now have the prop spotted cow.
No way.
I've got it in my hand right now, man. I have the spotted cow. Tom handed it to me. It was a little early for beer, so I stuck it in my shorts pocket and I took it home.
Well, I can tell you that Monteraj is drinking spotted cow right now, so give him his due.
Excellent choice.
So here's the deal. We can talk about all the speeches. We can talk about all the dynamics of it. We don't have a lot of time, so let's get down to the bottom line. Last week was the pivotal week in the Senate race. It was the turning point week where this race that had a lot of speculation, a lot of theories started to get serious and started to get real. The winner of the week was Mandela Barnes. He got two poll victories, right? He got the Marquette poll, which put him 6 points ahead. Very nice finish, very nice position. And he got a very narrow win in the straw poll at the convention. Both of those are consequential surveys. They both give a little bit of energy. They both give something. Mandela Barnes got both of those. He also got some major union endorsements. SEIU, he's got AFSCME on board now. So Barnes is clearly emerging as the front runner. The other person who got something out of the week, I think, was Sarah Godlewski, because even though she was down in the Marquette poll, she did very, very well in the straw poll. And she's really harnessed a lot of this energy as regards the Roe decision. The person who I think took a little bit of a hit last week was Alex Lasry, who I think a lot of people thought would emerge as the first place finisher in the Marquette poll because he'd been moving up in previous polls, and if his trajectory had continued, he would have been in first place. It didn't happen. Barnes held the lead there. And also, frankly, his finish in the straw poll at the convention was quite weak. It wasn't all that impressive. And so it's not to say that Lasry's out of the running by any means. He is by far the best finance candidate, and he's actually developed into a pretty good one-on-one candidate. He's very good on talking to people, reaching out to folks.
I'm so sorry, John. We got to leave it there. Spotted cows for all my friends. I'm buying. I owe you, John. I owe you. Come back. More Devils.
Well, they're doing far more than dismissing me.
The Shaw 101 FM, your fix for progressive talk. From Butler to Wind Lake. Always streaming at WAUKradio.com.
Smart Asset Realty offers everything necessary to help you successfully evaluate, acquire, and maintain any size property and maximize a property's potential value. Whether it's the first time you are purchasing a house or managing your next apartment complex, we are here to reach your real estate goals. Start investing now. We take the headaches, you keep the profit. Contact us at 262-232-8738 or visit us at smartassetrealty.com.
Se habla español.
Listen to the Shaw 101 FM and WAUK 540 AM, Waukesha's only news talk radio station, bringing you a lineup of live talk radio every single weekday. Kick off your afternoon with local headlines and multiple trains of thought by listening to Dueling Tangents with Luke and Brian. Tune in for the political party that is the Devil's Advocates radio show every day from 3 to 6 p.m. Right here on the Shaw 101 FM and WAUK 540 AM.
AP News. I'm Ed Donahue. The House committee investigating the Capitol riot will hold a surprise hearing tomorrow. The AP's Sagar Magani reports the next hearing was supposed to be next month.
That raises expectations of new bombshells, with the committee saying it wants to present recently obtained evidence. The panel received new footage of Donald Trump and his inner circle from a British filmmaker, taken before and after the riot. It's unclear if that footage is tomorrow's subject, and a panel spokesman would not comment on the hearing's substance. There have been 5 hearings so far. At least 2 more were planned for July, with panel members saying they'd focus on domestic extremists who breached the Capitol and what Trump was doing at the time. Sagar Magani, Washington.
Some states have trigger laws in effect now that the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade, meaning abortion would be banned in those states. In Louisiana, a judge in New Orleans temporarily blocked enforcement of that state's trigger law ban. Abortion rights advocates argued it was unclear. Wisconsin Governor Tony Evers says he plans to do whatever he can to evade the state's abortion ban.
We're going to fight and fight and fight to make sure that the women in the state of Wisconsin have the same rights they had 3 days ago going forward. This is not over yet. We're going to continue to fight.
President Biden and Western allies at a 3-day summit in the Bavarian Alps say they're intent on keeping economic fallout from the war in Ukraine from fracturing the global coalition working to punish Russia's aggression. In a reversal for President Biden, a federal appeals court in New Orleans agreed to reconsider its own April ruling that allowed the administration to require federal employees to be vaccinated against the coronavirus. The Coast Guard says it has rescued 3 U.S. sailors whose vessel began taking on water during a trip from the British Virgin Islands to Bermuda. This is AP News.
From Up North News, I'm Pat Kreitlow. Governor Tony Evers made some news at the state Democratic Convention, telling a cheering crowd that while the U.S. Supreme Court's repeal of Roe v. Wade puts Wisconsin back under an 1849 abortion ban, he'll offer clemency to any doctors prosecuted under it. Attorney General Josh Kaul repeated that the State Department of Justice will not be prosecuting anyone under the pre-Civil War abortion ban either. And delegates heard from the candidates hoping to replace Senator Ron Johnson. We have videos with highlighted remarks from them on our social media sites. Also, the bipartisan gun safety bill passed and was quickly signed into law over the weekend. Note it was very much a bipartisan bill in Congress, but not a single Wisconsin Republican voted for the measure. These stories and more in our daily newsletter. You can sign up for it on the web at upnorthnewswi.com.
And during the few moments that we have left, we want to talk right down to earth in a language that everybody here can easily understand.
Think you know politics? Think again. Welcome to the Devil's Advocates.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates radio show, rolling through the Monday Happier Happy Hour. It's always happier when a fine guest like John Nichols comes around and does a little co-devil, and appreciate you, John. Always great to see John and Mary at the Democratic Party convention. You know, I told myself I didn't bump into a single journalist there, but John Nichols, of course, he's at the top of the list. He's the only one, other than, you know, like meeting myself in the mirror. He's like the only other journalist at the DPW. I'm sure there were some others, but, you know, they just were doing their job. They weren't partying. You know, I feel like it's my job to represent the fraternity of partying journalists at the conventions. It's an important job. A couple of thoughts for our fine audience. Coming up tomorrow, starting at high noon, a urgent and special J6 Hearing 6, unexpectedly scheduled for tomorrow at high noon. We're going to play it out live right here on the Devil's Advocates and the Devil Radio and the Sean, you know, the network. So tune in at noon. Above and beyond that, for those that were not in attendance this weekend at the DPW, Fancy Brian, you probably took note of the fact I had to squeeze it in there. I have the Tom Nelson Memorial Spotted Cow. I'm putting it in the vault. If Tom Nelson is the U.S. Senator, it's that beer that vaulted his speech and him to that vaunted role. However, for anyone that, you know, was there, and anyone that's been watching close and living it, and interviewing these candidates, and I'd like to think that's me, By the way, during my conversation with John, I got a solicitation from the 5th candidate that's trying to make it on the stage. There's going to be one debate, one U.S. senatorial debate. It's going to happen on July 17th. That's a Sunday at 6 p.m. And to qualify, you got to have 5,000 donors. Well, I interviewed all the fine candidates. I interviewed Nelson on Friday. I interviewed Godlewski, Mandela, Lasry, and on Saturday, and also Stephen Olakara and technically Peter Pekarski, interviewed all of those candidates. Olakara's got a plan, though. Olakara is getting close to qualifying for the debate, which if you're not on the debate stage, you're done. You might as well, pack it in now. But Olakara could join them, could be a 5-some. Chuck Todd and Charles Benson, one other's moderating the big WTMJ TV debate. And I believe we have permission to broadcast that. All state broadcasters will have permission to broadcast it. We will do so, unlike most others. But anyways, Fancy Brian, it was a fun DPW. It was a party. I missed my little buddy, need a drinking partner. But we've got some sound. Who are we playing first? Fancy Brian, who is the first up in the 5-minute speech category?
Just going by order, I got Sarah Godlewski.
Let's do Sarah Godlewski in pink. Her little cheese curd crossed the stage before she did. Play it for the people.
Well, hello, Wisconsin Democrats. It is so great to be with you all here today, and I will tell you, I had a speech all planned out where I was going to talk about growing up right here in western Wisconsin and, talk about my parents who are 2 retired public school teachers and talk about my little cheese curd Hartley. But, Roe happened, and it's been devastating because many of us in this room now have fewer rights than we had just 72 hours ago. And I'm pissed. I'm pissed because we had 50 years to codify this, but the Senate didn't prioritize our reproductive rights. And, thank goodness for Tammy, but she needs help. And it's one of the reasons why I'm running for the U.S. Senate, because I'm sick of this body treating our reproductive freedom like it's some sort of extra credit project. And quite frankly, if we had more Democratic women at that U.S. Senate table, we would have gotten this done a long time ago. But, the real culprit here is Ron Johnson, because Ron Johnson is the one that said, ladies, if you don't like it, you should move. Ron, I've got news for you. We're the majority. We're not moving, but we're going to send you packing this November. And it's clear Ron Johnson just doesn't give a damn about us. And we need somebody in Washington who's going to get things done. And that's exactly what I'm going to do, starting with cutting costs for working families. I mean, we have seen corporations like Big Oil and Big Pharma that are making record-breaking profits, but yet working families are struggling. And Ron Johnson just doesn't have the guts to stand up to corporate greed, but I do. I want to get things done for working families like affordable child care, paid family leave, and affordable senior care. And quite frankly, if we had more working moms at that U.S. Senate table, this would have been done years ago. And not to be controversial, but, I believe in science. And I believe we have to do everything we can to fight the climate crisis. Well, Ron Johnson's calling it BS. And look, to do all of this, we've got to get rid of the filibuster to get this stuff done. People will tell me, you know, Sarah, running for the U.S. Senate is hard, but getting things done is even harder. I have been underestimated my entire life. And whenever someone has told me what I can't do, I've shown them what I can do, starting with my career in national security. You can imagine a 20-something-year-old walking into the Pentagon. They gave me a few weeks. I was there for almost a decade. Or when I stepped up to save the state treasurer's office, everyone said there was no way we could beat Scott Walker. But thanks to many of you, we did with 62% of the vote. And then when I stepped up to run for state treasurer as a political nobody from Eau Claire, I flipped more Trump counties than the governor, lieutenant governor, and attorney general. And then when I walked into my office, I can't make this up, they had wires hanging down from the ceiling, the Republicans cut off my Wi-Fi, and they gave me a pay-as-you-go flip phone. But I didn't let that stop me. You know, one of my first major actions was overturning a Republican gag order on climate change and then investing in renewable energy projects. I also started a home ownership program to help Wisconsinites buy, fix, and stay in their homes. And I introduced bipartisan legislation so every kid in the state of Wisconsin could get a savings account called 401 Kids. And despite the Republicans' obstacles to make sure that I couldn't do anything, I still did for Wisconsin. Because growing up in a union family, you learn never to back down from a fight, not even a tough one. And so, look, I will tell you, my name is Sarah Godlewski, and I am the woman that will defeat Ron Johnson this November. So please join me at sarahforwisconsin.com.
And that's the end. And literally, they were cutting off the mics hard. It was a hard out. Next, we've got Lieutenant Governor, U.S. senatorial candidate Mandela Barnes. If we're ready, let's try to get it before the break. Mandela speech Sunday morning.
Hey, we are fired up. Good morning, Wisconsin Democrats. Oh, we can do better than that. Good morning, Wisconsin Democrats. It is so exciting to be back here in La Crosse with so many familiar faces. And I want to say that you are quite literally the people who have moved mountains. Because in 2018, we kicked Scott Walker out of office for good. And let me tell you, that's exactly what we're going to do with Ron Johnson this November. So for those who may not know me, I'm Mandela Barnes. I'm proudly serving as your 45th Lieutenant Governor, and I'm proudly running for the United States Senate. Now, my story is a Wisconsin story. I tell it all the time. I don't come from a wealthy family, do not come from a politically connected family. I come from a hard-working union household. My mother was a public school teacher for 30 years. My dad worked third shift on an assembly line. And I'll tell you, those middle-class jobs, those union jobs were our ticket to the middle class, but unfortunately, that's a ticket that's in short supply these days. And that's exactly why I decided to run for the U.S. Senate. Because as I look around, I see times getting harder for folks. We just saw Roe versus Wade overturned. It's turning back 50 years of precedent. Voting rights are being stripped away all across this country, state by state. Our industries are in crisis. We see manufacturing suffering. Our small family farms are being squeezed out by large corporate monopolies. And we continue to see rising costs on working families. It feels like the deck is stacked against us. But we don't want a handout. We just want a fair shot. And we know that we will never get that fair shot as long as Ron Johnson is in the U.S. Senate. You know, Ron Johnson may say a lot of wild things, but what he's doing in Washington is no joke. People are suffering. He wants to divide us so that we don't pay attention to what he's really doing over there. Let me tell you a little secret. It's not working. We saw it in the poll numbers just last week. My campaign is beating Ron Johnson. And I'm the only Democratic candidate who is leading Ron Johnson with independent voters. Let me remind you, this is Wisconsin, if you haven't realized. Independent voters matter in these close elections, and that is exactly how we're going to send him packing. Ron Johnson's more vulnerable now today than he's ever been before, and we have to take full advantage, but it won't be based on how bad Ron Johnson is. This is going to be about our values and our vision for a better Wisconsin, for a better United States of America. The thing Ron Johnson doesn't understand, that all of us in this room and everybody outside in all 72 counties across this great state have so much more in common with each other than we will ever have with a self-serving, out-of-touch, multimillionaire politician like Ron Johnson. Now, this isn't about red or blue. It's not about left or right. It's not always about black or white. This is about the folks who have been at the top and the rest of us who've been left at the bottom. If we're going to change Washington, we have to change the people we send to Washington. We need to elect people who share our experience. I look folks in the eye everywhere I go across this state, and I tell them I share your fears and your struggles, but also your hopes and dreams. And we should have hope, because in our greatest challenges are our greatest opportunities. We have an opportunity right now to rebuild the middle class, to give everyone in this country a fair shot at the American dream, to bring manufacturing back home, to support our family farms like never before, to create thousands of good-paying union jobs by tackling the climate crisis and investing in clean energy. We also have the opportunity to protect the right to choose once and for all by making Roe versus Wade the law of the land. I tell you, I believe that better is possible. I know that all of you believe the same thing. It's exactly why you're here today. And I'm here to tell you that we're not alone in this fight. I'm so proud that this campaign has been endorsed by over 160 elected officials, union leaders, and family farmers across Wisconsin. I've been endorsed by some of our state's largest unions, like SEIU, AFSCME, IBEW, and AFT Local 212. And then by some of our nation's leading champions for working people, people like Senator Cory Booker, Senator Elizabeth Warren, and our very own Congresswoman Gwen Moore. So just like 4 years ago when we got rid of Scott Walker, I tell you, this November, if you join me, I promise you, we will get rid of Ron.
And that's when they cut his mic off. That was Mandela Barnes, current Lieutenant Governor, U.S. senatorial candidate. He did well. He won the straw poll narrowly. But a win's a win, baby. Just win. Come back. We'll bring you Tom Nelson's speech next. I think it was the best of the day. I know I walked away with the Spotted Cow, the real trophy.
You know, I was not involved in this at all.
Here's today's STEM tip. Don't throw out that old plastic bottle. Repurpose it by turning it into an awesome terrarium. Just fill it with sand, pebbles, soil, and your favorite plant. It'll grow sealed right in its own ecosystem. Learn more at She Can STEM. A message from the Ad Council.
What is dedication?
The thing that drives me every day as a dad is Dariana. We call him Day for short. Every day he's hungry for something, whether it's attention, affection, knowledge. And there's this huge responsibility in making sure that when he's no longer under my wing, that he's a good person. I want him to be able to sit back one day and go, we worked together, we did a good job.
That's dedication. Find out more at fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Warning, listening to the Devil's Advocates may expose you to opposing views.
It's scary. Maybe I am coming a little bit more left, but...
Well, it's not left. It's good governance, Steve.
It's good to be exposed to different ideas, and I do appreciate that you do put that out there on the airways, because a lot of times where you just get a little soundbite of this or a little bit of that, and that's the end of it. You're to be commended for that.
Dave, I'm glad you finally come around to commending the greatest radio show ever, man.
Follow the Devil's Advocates on Facebook and Twitter.
I'm Kirk Bangstad, and I own the Minocqua Brewing Company in deep red northern Wisconsin, and I have a super PAC. We make good trouble by buying billboards, radio ads, and calls to voters in northern Wisconsin. We target federal and state elections, think Ron Johnson and Tom Tiffany, and concentrate on a fair redistricting process. Give a donation now if you're able at the MinocquaBrewingCompany.com Super PAC tab. Help us make the politics of the Northwoods as clean as our lakes and streams. That's the MinocquaBrewingCompany.com Super PAC tab.
Right now, we all feel a little disconnected. For seniors living alone, the isolation can be overwhelming.
Connect with an older loved one and have the conversation of a lifetime at StoryCorps Connect.org/AARP. A message from AARP, StoryCorps, and the Ad Council.
The Devil's Advocates, radio for the 99%.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. Little post-convention coverage, trying to bring you all the important DPW speeches. We featured Godlewski, we featured Mandela Barnes. Now I'm going to play the best speech of all the U.S. senatorial candidates, at least in my humble opinion, Tom Nelson's beer. He compared himself to the Spotted Cow and then the Bud Light, but listen for yourself. See if you were moved. I'll play it for the people. Fancy Brian, Tom Nelson.
All right. Good morning, Democrats. I'm Tom Nelson, a proud fifth-generation Wisconsin Democrat from Outagamie County. I've been elected 6 times in a Trump county. I live in Ron Johnson's backyard. His Fox Valley voters are my voters. Now, this is the Democratic Party of Wisconsin convention, so I don't think there's much I need to say to this crowd about our urgent mission to send this lying, treason-loving, woman-hating Putin stooge back to his Florida vacation home to be with his billionaire's father's money.
This is where Tom started winning over the crowd.
So we can all agree that Ron Johnson stinks. But let me use some metaphors we all understand to tell you why I think I'm the right candidate to take back this seat, Russ Feingold's seat and Gaylord Nelson's seat. Here in Wisconsin, we like beer, right? Now, I'm not a big drinker, but let me use beer to make the case for my candidacy and why it is unique. In my hand here is a Spotted Cow. A strong, beloved, homegrown beer from New Glarus, a small town in Greene County here in Wisconsin. This beer knows what it is. It is employee-owned, so workers share in the profits and makes no excuses for what it stands for. When the Spotted Cow was first introduced, I'm sure no one thought it could take on the Budweisers of this world, with so much more name recognition, money, and resources. Now, a lot of those beers are from out of state. They have no real history here. They are now owned by a billion-dollar foreign corporation based in Belgium, England, and Canada, and they sure taste watered down. Now, I'm not the weak beer. I'm the Democrat who alone among the candidates has consistently campaigned on Medicare for all as the only way to fix our broken system. I'm the only candidate here who's spoken out against Line 5, a rotten artery of fossil fuels fueling catastrophic climate change in the North Woods. I'm the only candidate who has opposed Donald Trump's racist Title 42 immigration policy that turns back refugees based on bad faith COVID BS. I'm the only one who has called for a new dairy revitalizing profit pricing system so we can finally stop the annihilation of the small Wisconsin family farm. And after Friday's abomination of a decision sending women back to the dark ages, I'm proud to be the only candidate who has said we need to expand the Supreme Court. My advocacy is not weak. It is not timid. It isn't poll tested in a lab. It's based on what's the right thing to do. Because to beat Ron Johnson, we cannot offer weak beer. To beat Ron Johnson, we will need someone who can grow and expand our margins and win in places where we used to win. We have to win in places like Outagamie County, home of Joe McCarthy, where I've won 6 times and where I helped save 300 union jobs, as I documented in this book. Places like Polk County, where my dairy farm grandparents revered Gaylord Nelson. Now, we know we're facing strong headwinds, and that's why to win, my fellow Democrats, we need a strong Wisconsin beer candidate, especially at a time when Americans are rightfully frustrated by a Washington that doesn't look out for them. 2/3 of the Senate are millionaires like Ron Johnson, whose money has distanced themselves from the hopes and dreams and pain of working families. So I urge you this morning to join our bold, homegrown, Wisconsin-driven Spotted Cow campaign, because I'll tell you this, if we do serve weak beer this November, we are all in for one hell of a hangover.
Well said, Tom Nelson. I gave him the old attaboy out in the hallway, and he gave me the very Spotted Cow. I hold it in my hand. The Spotted Cow Caucus, if you will. Well done. But a little late in the game to affect the outcome of the straw polling, I'd like to tell you how it went. WIS Politics always makes a tradition of straw polling the Dem Party attendees at the old convention. Here's how it went. Mandela Barnes was favored by 121 or 32.4% of the 363 73 delegates and registered guests who cast a vote. Second in that race, Sarah Godlewski at 31.9%, 119, a two-point margin of victory for Mandela Barnes. Now, the disappointment of the day, at least for the Lasry campaign, his campaign received only 58 votes, or about 15.5%. Outagamie County Executive Tom Nelson, good speech, too late in the game to move the straw poll, 35 votes, or about 9.4%. Others that won the straw poll in their respective races, Brookfield State Rep Sarah Rodriguez, we had her on the show Saturday night. She is favored for Lieutenant Governor. She received 241 votes, about 65%, while Hmong Institute CEO Ping He took 132 votes, about 35%. And conventioneers preferred, and this one's troubling to me, preferred Dane County Dem Party Chair Alexis Sabor. No issue there, more so the fact that they chose Alexis Sabor over longtime incumbent Doug LaFollette. It's a little blue-on-blue violence Crudy doesn't like. For the Secretary of State position, Sabor got 252 votes, about 68%, while LaFollette received 121 votes, about 32%. LaFollette's on vacation. He didn't even get a speech. He lost in abstention. In the treasurer's race, Jillian Patino did quite well, 48.8%. And one other little footnote. The lead singer of Green Day renounced his American citizenship over the weekend in reaction to the overturning of Roe v. Wade. AG Josh Kaul, a fine guest earlier in this big program. John Nichols, always happy when John Nichols comes around. Tomorrow on the big show, Maggie Dawn, not Evers' chief of staff, my good friend Maggie Dawn, Milwaukee County Corporate Counsel. J6 hearings, they go off at noon. We'll play them live. We'll react afterwards. Please tune in. Dom will be back as well, or at least he's supposed to be.
Why don't you just leave me alone?
If you're not happy here, you can leave.
Listen to the Shaw 101 FM and WAUK 540 AM, Waukesha's only news talk radio station. The Devil's Advocates Radio Show is live every weekday from 3 to 6 p.m. Join Native Roots Radio from 6 to 7